This is an open forum time between now and 6 o'clock. We'll fit in as many speakers as wish to speak on any topic that you want. And the first card that I have here is Mr. Mark Taylor. Mr. Taylor, you have 4 minutes.
Thank you, sir.
And there's a little light there to help you guide you.
There won't be a problem. It's short and sweet. Good evening, members of the City Council. My name is Mark Taylor. I'm a sixth-generation Pensacola resident that lives at 1111 East Marino Street. I own a number of small businesses and investment properties, many of which are located within the city limits. On Monday, you accepted a disparity study completed by MGT of America. I reviewed much of the study and was surprised that many of the cited contractors are actually located outside the city limits of Pensacola. In further review of our Small Business Enterprise Program ordinances, I came to understand that the city ordinance states local area means that geographic area served by the 325 zip code prefix. As a city business owner who chooses to be located inside the city limits, I am concerned that our city ordinance gives the same preferential treatment and competitive edge to businesses located as far away as Okaloosa County, the same treatment and competitive edge they would give me and other city businesses who pay additional ad valorem taxes to be located in the city of Pensacola. I respectfully propose a legislative change that would define the local geographic area for the Small Business Enterprise Program to be confined only to the city limits of Pensacola. I strongly believe this will help add value to current city businesses and might even help entice other businesses who wish to do business with the city to move their locations inside, or for those who are near the city borders now to annex themselves into the city limits. Thank you for your time and your service to this community.
Okay, but before you leave, there may be some council members that want to address you, but I do want to take an opportunity to just tell you something that we had tried at one time before. It's going back maybe 2.5 years. I don't have a specific recollection of it, but I had read an article in a government magazine, I think published somewhere here in Florida, about something that a municipality had done, and it looked like it was a legally defensible thing, and I was fascinated by it, and I brought that to the city manager, and the city manager did some research on it. This was under the old form of government, did some research on it, and came up with a draft ordinance for us to consider here on City Council. And I would have thought that we would have gotten all kinds of applause from different businessmen here locally, big businessmen here, really, and well, of all sizes, balked at it. They absolutely said they did not want that ordinance to pass, because what they had seen in other municipalities is that they had been blocked. There had been retaliation, against them. And I'll just tell you, one of the guys that was against it was Mr. Greenhut. He came down here and was very, very vocal against it, but he was just one of many that spoke out against that, either through emails or phone calls or appearing here to council. And so council decided not to take action on that. I'm not saying what you're saying that we're unsympathetic to and that it's falling on deaf ears, but we have tried to visit something like that before.
I see. And is Mr. Greenhut's business located inside the city limits?
Yes, he's right down here in what we'd call the blocks, I think.
Certainly. Well, I certainly wouldn't understand his concerns, but the bottom line is if you have a more qualified vendor, you're not going to stay in the city, but it just gives, if you've got an even tiebreaker and you've got a city business, it gives preference to that. So it's kind of the same deal, very similar to the Bullston Gar thing earlier in the year and stuff like that. But I don't know. I mean, all city businesses are paying extra ad valorem taxes. They're paying a separate occupational tax now called city business receipt or something like that. So I just feel like if we don't start adding value to city businesses and city residents, we're going to continue to see the decline. Our CFO talked about on Monday that we've already lost a percentage of our local option sales tax to the county. And I just have a feeling that's the way we're going to keep going if we don't add some value to city residences and city businesses.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Geralds and Ms. Myers wants to say something.
Mr. President, and sir, you are absolutely correct. And I was going to say to you, a part of what President Hall was saying was that, and you were referring, I would believe, to the concept of keep it local.
Yes, sir.
And as indicated, the Sharks came out and they fought tooth and nail because they were saying it would prohibit us from doing business outside of our general area. In other words, if a major contract or project was available in one of the other counties, they were concerned that if we went with the keep it local concept, that they would be prohibited, or they may experience some difficulty in getting contracts outside of Escambia. And as the sharks began to circle, that's what happened to that idea. But you are absolutely correct. Thank you.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. I want to thank you for coming down here tonight and raising that issue. I do represent a district where there are a lot of local businesses, and I would like very much to follow up with you. And if you would give me a call, we will set up a time to meet, and I would like to have this discussion with you so that we can go into more details about your concerns.
Certainly, that would be an honor. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, and thank you, sir. Ms. Ann Regan. Welcome back.
Ann Regan, 424 East Government Street, hello. State law mandates how the City Council must select an independent auditor. On July 16th, Mr. Hall told you that you could select the independent auditor by continuing the 2007 contract of Saltmarsh for auditing services for one more year, and you did that. The problem is that that contract is totally illegal. The state statutes, section 218.39 and 218.391, that govern auditor selection were passed in 2005 and were in effect in 2007. When the City Council awarded the auditing contract to Saltmarsh, it totally ignored those statutes. The statute 218.391 says that the council shall establish an audit committee and the audit committee shall issue an RFP. That wasn't done. The audit committee shall evaluate the proposals, rank the firms, recommend the firms to the City Council. That wasn't done. The City Council then shall negotiate the contract. That wasn't done. Not only is the contract not in conformance to the law, it doesn't conform with the new city charter. It talks about notifying the city manager and the chair of the chair of the finance committee of certain responsibilities. It talks about informing the finance committee members of the auditor's responsibilities. None of those positions exist today. This law is very important because it embodies the concept that only the City Council, not the administration or management, can ensure the people of Pensacola that an audit is truly an independent audit. Hence the City Council, through its audit committee, not the administration, issues the RFP, evaluates and ranks and recommends the firms, and then the City Council negotiates the contract. That wasn't done in the 2007 process. These audit selection guidelines explain all that in detail to the City Council. This contract was negotiated by management and does the very opposite of what the law requires. It places control of the audit in the hands of management instead of the City Council. On July 16th, you were almost there. You'd done everything that the law required, and you were at the point of negotiating the contract with the ranked firm. All you needed to do was to agree that the City Council would negotiate with one of those two firms, would negotiate a contract with one of those two firms. The important thing, the most important thing, was probably not that you needed to figure out which firm or be perfect about that, but the City Council do the negotiating. Instead, rather than negotiate a contract with one of those two firms as the law required, you decided to go along with this illegal contract from 2007. Rather than saddle the people of Pensacola with that illegal contract, I would hope that you agree that what you should do is go back and fix this situation and negotiate a contract with one of those two firms.
Okay, thank you. Ms. Regan, Mr. Weiss may have a question for you.
I actually just wanted to thank Ms. Regan for coming down and bringing this to our attention. I apologize that I have not had time to meet with you and discuss this further. I did get your email, and I know as much as council wants to move on because this has been quite a mess of a situation from one turn to the next. Seemed like every step we took we were walking in peanut butter. But I was concerned and read the information into the record about the decision that council actually made in July, and urgently wanted to make sure that we as a body are protected, because this is our audit. This is ensuring that we are good stewards of the citizens' dollars, that we manage it appropriately, and it's supposed to be independent. It would take a vote of this body, I believe, to have the Attorney General give their blessing to what we have done and found our way through this, and we'll start over next year. But I think we should do that. I think it's prudent to say, you know, this was a huge mess, and this contract that we're now aware of from 2007 was also not in order. What is our path forward, and have the Attorney General tell us, not that I don't respect Mr. Messer's opinion, but we have a state law that we appear to have a problem with as a council. So, Mr. President, I don't know if you would want me to wait and make a motion during new business, or if we should discuss this further now since it is open forum. I'm happy to wait. And
I think it would be more
Yeah.
appropriate for new business.
Okay, thank you.
Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Ms. Regan, are you going to be around for our discussion about this under new business? Actually, I guess it would come up under old business.
Old business.
Yeah,
It would,
sure.
Yeah.
Okay, old business.
So,
yeah.
because I was going to ask that it be brought up under old business. I don't want to take up the public forum discussing this, but there are some issues that need to be discussed. We already have one request to the state attorney generals for an opinion regarding the legality of the contract back in 2007. If it was illegal, could it have been ratified? So
That was the RFP issued this year.
yeah, well, if you could, if you would like to stay around, we're going to bring it up under old business, and I may have some questions for you.
I'll stay around.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Mr. Edward Mueller, or Mueller is, thank you, sir.
I use Mueller, but it's okay. Muller's fine if you're on the phone. I am Ed Mueller of 207 Savalos Street with a request for an agenda item for the Committee of the Whole. The citizens of the East Government Street, Pensacola Historic District neighborhood would like to provide a written and oral comment to the Committee of the Whole to report on the public involvement meetings on the improvements to East Government Street neighborhood. Would like to be included on the agenda item, or as an agenda item for the Committee of the Whole meeting for August 20th, if possible.
Sir, we'll put that down to discuss under new business.
Thank you.
Okay. And we have your contact information here, so if you wanted to stay around for that discussion, that would be fine. And if you didn't, we would have somebody notify you of the results of that. Okay. Okay. Apologize. Ms. Dubuisson.
Good evening, Council. Dorothy Dubuisson, 1308 North Barcelona. I want to commend both of the first two speakers for bringing to this Council's attention procedural issues which need to be corrected, and I appreciate the fact that Council does appear to be listening quite attentively to comments that are made during forum. I would encourage the Chair, rather than responding and editorializing in response when the rest of the Council does not have an opportunity, if you just acknowledged, and if you wanted to bring it up later under new business for discussion, that would be better than eating up 7 minutes of time when the speaker has only taken up 2. The reason that I rose this evening is because this is National Farmers Market Week. And we in Pensacola have something to be very proud of, and that would be the Palafox Market, which is downtown on Palafox Boulevard. It's been in existence for almost 5 years now, and it is now a full-time year-round market averaging 90 vendors every Saturday, with visitor customers there between 2,000 and 5,000 on any given Saturday, and on certain Saturdays even beyond that. I've had the privilege of the last few months visiting with a lot of tourists and regional visitors who come in specifically to Pensacola for the purposes of attending the Palafox Market. And I'm proud to say that the Palafox Market is currently in competition for America's favorite market. It is in the top 10 of 600 markets in the United States. I would encourage you, Council, and anyone that you might contact to go online and vote Palafox Market as America's favorite farmers market. You can just hit Palafox Market in your Google and it'll take you to the Palafox Market page, which will lead you to the link, or you can go to America's Favorite Farmers Markets and then click in Palafox Market, put in your email address and vote. And we are, I believe, one of the best markets, and thanks to Ms. Hillary Giles and Mr. Kimbrough and the entire DIB, I think it's an asset that we in the city need to be proud of. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Gary Sansing.
Gary Sansing, 1517 East Jackson. Good evening, folks. I love public forum, and I'm sorry I was late because I was wondering what public forum was about. But after listening to these people, the three, that's what it's about. I miss what this gentleman said, but I think it was about local businesses. And Mr. John Gerald, he's right, Tip O'Neill. It's local, local, local politics. Everything. From the audit, I thought you people, I was so happy to hear you finally made up a decision on something. And then what? Then farmers market. It's wonderful. It's absolutely a wonderful idea. That's our local farmers, where you maybe our local restaurants can go right down there instead of searching, you know, the organic farmers. The farmers might be able to bring it to us, and we'll have some good, wholesome food. So that, I'll thank you. I'm in the mood for the first couple of minutes to thank you people, some of you. Thank you for allowing Occupation Pensacola. What it is, maybe you don't see it, but it's trying to tell you about all the corruption that's going on. The 99% versus the 1% up in Wall Street and Washington. We won't go further there. And I want to thank Mr. Larry Johnson for stopping by and asking what we're doing down at Food Not Bombs. Thank you, sir. My son was in town, and I was trying to get a list of things for his children. One's the girl, she's 7.5, and the boy's 5.5. And one of them was the mess hall. Unfortunately, the only free time, I wanted to get him over to the Wildlife Sanctuary, Walden Pond, which used to be Maggie's Ditch, a city dump, and Global Learning Center. But you were closed Monday.
Sorry.
We looked it up, and now they know.
Other jobs.
I know, that's the thing. We all got too many irons in the fire. But that was part of the plan. These are wonderful things we have here. My son and his wife love to come down here. LA is like New York. It wouldn't survive if it wasn't for legals and illegals. LA is about to go bankrupt. I hope we don't, meaning the city. One of the things I've offered to you, dealing with business, I looked it up, well, we looked it up 2 weeks ago. Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac are now holding $4 trillion of worth of property. Mainly, they acquired it under subprime loans or toxic waste, bailouts, half a dozen other names. When someone says that the real estate market is leveled out, maybe for the moment, but 90% of the country don't know that there's $4 trillion in the, they're trying to push some off of other places. I don't know where all the toxic waste, subprimes, the loans are going, but I do know this. There's about $20 billion of bonuses given every year to that 1% that has put that problem on us. And I got a lot more to say, but I have to wait.
Thanks, sir. Mr. Kiesler.
Mr.
Oh,
President,
I'm sorry, Mr. Weiss, yeah.
I just really quickly wanted to thank Mr. Sansing for calling last week and trying to arrange for me to meet Martin. We were in Virginia Beach on a family vacation, and I hated to have missed him, and I hope that he had a wonderful time here with his kids.
Thank you for that. He had a wonderful time, and for me, I was an observer. It wasn't much. He was with the family. It's a wonderful place at the beach for kids. We got to make it. The tourists, they need things for children or young people, not a bunch of bars down on Main Street where family people don't go. We need things for the children. And make it safe on that Palafox where I can walk down there. Sorry.
Yes.
I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesler.
Thank you, Mr. President. Byron Kiesler, 516 West Blount Street. For the past quarter century, residents of Pensacola have dragged their lawn chairs, blankets, and coolers to Seville Square for an evening of music by local bands and performing groups. Just being there always reminded me of another shaded park with a small band shell in northeast Pennsylvania, where we gathered for summer concerts. I can't say with certainty how good our Maple City band actually was, but to a 5 or 6 year old a full decade before TV, they were the big time. And I wouldn't trade the experience for all the concerts I've seen in the following 7 decades. Now, save for a miracle, last Thursday was likely to have been the last concert in the park we will ever again enjoy, for lack of funding, we're told. We've seen big bands and top name performers at the Civic Center, the Sanger, and at the old Bayfront Auditorium. So what was the appeal of performances like the one last week by our own Clark and Company that has kept crowds coming back year after year for 25 years? Well, for one thing, they were free. While every taxpayer in Pensacola is paying for the Sanger Theater renovations and, yes, for the multi-purpose ballpark, not every family can afford tickets for the performances hosted in those venues, not to mention the cost of food and beverages. At Seville Square, folks could bring their own picnic baskets and ice chests, socialize in a relaxed setting, and even dance to the music if they desired. In some other settings, one dare not even whisper or munch a peanut for fear of disturbing someone. In a word, the setting in the park was family friendly and up close and personal with the performers. I remember seeing Neil Diamond at the Civic Center a few years ago. I wonder how many got to shake his hand after the concert. Now, of course, there's a demand here for big name performers and well-known bands. The grand concert venues have their places too. But there's a demand as well for performance sites where families can enjoy local talent while relaxing in what is, in my opinion, one of the lovelier such settings of its kind anywhere. Over the years, I've noticed that when things are wanted badly enough, by the right people I should add, funding can somehow usually be found. This is not to minimize the seriousness of our budgetary problems. It is, however, commentary on our perceived priorities. Nature and fate do play a role in our financial situation, but so do the decisions we make. Perhaps family-friendly events like the concert in the park just deserve a little greater consideration. Perhaps some of the right people will also see the value of keeping a 25-year-old tradition going that's loved by so many ordinary Pensacolians. Now, if we simply can't afford it, we can't afford it, end of discussion. And I'd be the last to encourage the city to spend money it doesn't have. But it would be a shame to give up something that has brought so much enjoyment to so many for 25 years before exploring all options. And I thank you for listening.
Thank you, Mr. Kiesler. Dr. Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I wanted to thank Mr. Kiesler for coming down. My family has enjoyed those concerts religiously for as long as I've been back, and it's going to be sad if they go. And I want to thank the Pensacola Heritage Foundation for their hard work. And I also understand that a lot of the problem has been the volunteers are just plain tired. It's a lot of work to put that on, and I do hope that we will find a group willing to step up and put in the effort, and others to put in the money, because it takes both, and sometimes the challenge is finding both of the parts. But it is a great Pensacola tradition, and I hope that we as a community can find a way to keep it going. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I have no other cards for open forum, and it's coincidentally just about 6 o'clock. So that gives us a chance to look at approval of our minutes from our previous city council meeting. You've had a chance to review those. What's your pleasure?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Do you have any corrections, deletions, additions? Seeing none, please vote. Okay, that's approved unanimously, and for the record, all council members are present. Words and presentations there, Mr. Reynolds. You're on.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this point, if we could have Yvette McClellan, Budget Manager, and Gastonia Anderson, Budget Analyst, to come forward, please. The Government Finance Officers Association of the United States and Canada, known as GFOA, is pleased to announce that the City of Pensacola, Florida has received the GFOA's Distinguished Budget Presentation Award for its fiscal year 2012 budget. The award represents a significant achievement by the City of Pensacola. It reflects the commitment of the governing body and staff to meeting the highest principles of governmental budgeting. In order to receive the budget award, the city had to satisfy nationally recognized guidelines for effective budget presentation. These guidelines are designed to assess how well the city budget serves as a policy document, a financial plan, an operations guide, and a communications device. Budget documents must be rated proficient in all 4 categories and within the 14 mandatory criteria within these categories to receive the award. The City of Pensacola has received this award for the past 22 consecutive years. Congratulations.
Are there any public hearings, Madam Clerk?
There are none.
Quasi-judicial.
No, sir.
Mr. Reynolds, Mayor's report.
Thank you, Mr. President. At this point, I'd like to have Chief Simmons review some of the tasks that he has outlined and some of the programs that he has put in place in cooperation with some of our local entities to talk about our crime issue that everyone has been aware of. Chief Simmons.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds, members of council. As you're probably aware, over the last couple of months, we've had some drive-by shootings that have hit some of our neighborhoods. Specifically, we have had 3 shootings in a 4-day period. This prompted the mayor and myself to have a press conference outlining what we can do as a police department to stop that and then move forward. What we have done is we have put every sworn officer on the streets of the city of Pensacola in a marked police car to try to stop what we saw was going on. This was an unprecedented move. We've always had task forces, we've always had small groups, but this time we used everyone because we wanted to stop it and then move forward. We can no longer allow them to just shoot up our neighborhoods. I said then that we couldn't do it permanent. We have had officers that are assigned to internal affairs, to training, and to follow up on investigations. They typically wear plain clothes. In this situation, we wanted everyone out there, including myself, to show as much police presence as we possibly could. We have 152 to 4, depends on what day you ask me, sworn police officers. And during those first 2 weeks, we had every single officer in uniform in our neighborhood streets, just again to give that perception that and trying to break a habit of what we saw was going on. We did notice that most of these shootings were drug-related. In fact, I would say all of these shootings were drug-related or retaliatory, and that someone in the city limits would go and shoot someone in the county, and then they would return the favor, if you will. But we also noticed that these crimes occurred not only in the city but in the county, as I just mentioned. And the sheriff noticed that as well. Myself and Sheriff Morgan had a couple of meetings trying to determine what we can do to further stop this gun violence that we were seeing in the city of Pensacola and in the whole of Escambia County. It also allowed me to a way to transition from having every one of our officers on the streets to go back to the training and the other avenues that we were trying to address. This gives us a kind of a segue into the future, if you will. And so with that, we had another press conference, and that was the one just a couple days ago, maybe a week ago, where we announced the making of a gun crime task force. And what we thought was we didn't have the resources at the Pensacola Police Department to do this by ourselves. The Sheriff's Office didn't have it at the Sheriff's Office by themselves. But what we do have is very active federal agencies. We have ATF, U.S. Marshal Service, FBI, and they really cooperate well, and they really want to work with us well. And then we have the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and we had the support from the State Attorney's Office and the U.S. Attorney's Office. When you can get all of these groups together in our community, and this is specific to Escambia County, we can get them all together, use the resources of the state and federal government to help us locally here. We took that opportunity, and I won't say we strong-armed them, but because they knew that we had an issue here in the city of Pensacola that we were not comfortable with. They readily agreed to join forces with us, and that has created this gun crime task force. The task force is made up of about 15 state, local, and federal officers, and they respond to every gun crime. Every time that we have a call, we will call this response team, and they will use their expertise to come in and to the crime scene and to assist our homicide investigators, our persons investigators, and it really gives us a valuable resource with regards to tracking firearms, projectiles, shell casings, stuff that we really don't have the expertise nor the time to do. And what their plan also is to have this spider web, if you will, of who's connected to what, because we know they're connected. Sometimes our communication lapses with regards to the police department and the sheriff's office, and regarding the federal agencies as well. So they are now stationed outside of the ATF office. We have 2 sworn police officers. They are full-time there. The sheriff's office has 2 sworn deputies, plus a data analyst and some other support staff that the sheriff's office has kindly allowed to use for the team itself. Again, the ATF is the one that's the lead agency in this, but I just want to make sure I'm clear. If we have a crime that occurs in the city of Pensacola, the Pensacola Police Department will still investigate it. The sheriff and the police chief still has the overall authority for who investigates that crime within our jurisdiction. We do not want to give that up to anyone, quite frankly. And the federal agencies and the state agencies were willing to do that. Again, I mentioned the units that are involved, but I think it's important to note that it's every law enforcement agency in both of the state attorney or the prosecutors, the state prosecutor and the U.S. Attorney's Office. The ATF and Mr. Edens will determine whether it should go state or whether it goes federal. Some of these crimes just need to go federal, and I'll give you an example of a little bit later on of why we think it's important to evaluate the crimes on their own and then decide which avenue or which venue would actually do it. This brings me to kind of where we are now at the Pensacola Police Department. I mentioned earlier that we put all of our officers on the streets, but I also mentioned we couldn't continue to do that with the existing manpower that we have. And my thought is almost all of these things are drug related, and so what I wanted to do is pull some of our manpower back and concentrate on these drug areas, not necessarily the ones that you might see or the complaints about that are out in the open, because they're not always selling drugs. They're the ones that are just harboring, they're letting the cars come through and then they're directing them where to go. We've had many times we stop and get them, they have no drugs. But what we found out is what they're really doing is they're letting people know and they're giving directions on where to go. So what people may think is open drug sale is not necessarily an open drug sale. And we've noticed that by when we had all of our officers out on the street, they weren't concerned about an officer every block at all because they weren't doing anything. So what we want to do is concentrate a little more on where on these locations that tend to foster this this violent crime. In addition to that, what you'll see shortly is an emphasis on our housing complexes. I met this morning with representatives from the Pensacola Village. We had a large map out, and we're going to do a lot more at that location and other housing complexes as well. But we're going to start with Pensacola Village and some of the other drug areas. They're willing to work with us and with fencing and with cameras and with hiring additional officers so that we don't have to use all of our manpower. And then our neighborhood services unit will cooperate with them and will be the liaison between that group. Just to give you an idea of what we've been doing, the police department enjoys a very good response time. We had a shooting recently on West Jackson Street, and our officer arrived in 18 seconds. Now that's not typical, naturally, but we're out in full force, and the response time is very well. But I also want to give you an idea. As I know for a fact that the Pensacola Police Department and the Escambia County Sheriff's Department has been arresting a number of people for these crimes. Of the last 11 most recent people we've arrested for shootings, they have combined for 109 previous arrests. They have combined for 6 previous arrests involving firearms. They have combined for 38 previous arrests for violent crimes and 17 previous arrests for narcotics. As you can see, that's a number of arrests for the people that we've recently arrested for gun crimes. We're putting them in jail. They just tend to get out and do it again and again and again. We arrest so many people. In fact, I started looking at our arrest rate, and the Pensacola Police Department arrest rate is 18% above the state average in arrest rate. And compared to the huge numbers that the state of Florida has, 18% is a pretty good number. In fact, it puts us in the top 20 agency for the sheer number of arrests per 100,000. You can take that good or you can take that bad. We make a lot of arrests, but there's people to arrest, so it's a balancing act. Additionally, our clearance rate ranks us in the top 5 in the whole state of Florida. In fact, we're 4th in the state of Florida with for populations over 50,000 of population. We do have some challenges. I'm not going to sit here and say we do not have challenges. We have seen some influxes with some nationally known gang members trying to do some things and some initiation type things. I think what we're really seeing now is various groups. I used to be able to say a few groups, but I see various groups that are trying to make a name for themselves, trying to, again, retaliate. The most recent one we've had involved a homicide that took place at Baptist Hospital a year ago. Went to trial yesterday, or a hearing yesterday. There was a disturbance in the courthouse. That disturbance went back outside when they kicked him out of the courthouse, and naturally there were shots fired. This is the one that one of our officers responded to in 18 seconds. So again, there are challenges, but we're working on and we're working together in a combined effort. We're also working internally to get our officers in the right spot so that we can arrest those that are responsible, so we can get on to other things like speeders and that sort of thing. So anyways, that's just give you maybe it's a little more than you wanted, but I'll give you an idea of where we are at this point and where we think we're going.
Mr. Reynolds. Thank you, Mr. President. Chief Simmons, can you just talk briefly about the recent break-ins at Roger Scott and what we found at this point?
I can, thank you. There have been a number of vehicular break-ins at places like Roger Scott. We had a couple at Red Lobster. We've had a couple up in a number of different places up on the north end. And we have noticed, and the county has noticed, that there has been 2 groups of people, and they're rather nomadic, and they go from Pensacola to Panama City. And one is, if you've probably heard, is called the Felony Lane Gang, and that they steal things and then they use the outside lane, and the drive-through is considered the felony lane, so that it can't be identified as easy. There's another, some type of goon gang, they call themselves, and they're breaking into a number of cars too. We have identified those that are responsible for the Roger Scott and the Hunter Pool. We had some car burglars at Hunter Pool. We've identified them. We have warrants on them. The sheriff's office has had identified them. They have warrants on them as well. Again, we're making arrests. It may not help you out if you have something stolen, but all we can really do is put our manpower in the street. We can put our officers in the correct spot, and we can work and cooperate with other local agencies and do our very best to make the city of Pensacola safe. I would like to make mention, though, that nearly 90% of the vehicle burglars we have are cars that are left unlocked, and it would really go a long ways if people would help us out and lock their car doors.
Thank you, and also just for council's attention, we've taken a look at our security cameras at Roger Scott. We're revamping those at this point. But also the one thing that came out of Roger Scott, as I was being briefed on it, that I found very interesting is that the majority of the cars that were broken into Roger Scott had purses out in the open. And I don't make yourself a victim, I guess is the best thing to say.
Exactly.
All right, thank you, Chief, but stay there because Mr. Gerald's and Ms. DeWeese.
I'm fine, you can
Okay.
turn my light off.
Okay. You can turn off Ms. DeWeese's light, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Chief, I congratulate you for your efforts. I too met with management at the Pensacola Village Complex earlier this afternoon, as well as I met with some of the tenants, and I can assure you that we're going to continue to work together, and they are willing and interested in supporting your efforts to clear up the situation over there. However, there were some in the group that wanted to refer to it as racial profiling, but I was able to convince them, I believe, that this effort is for the protection of the residents who are not involved in these kinds of activities, and that they need they need the presence and the protection of the police department. And as I left this afternoon, they have pledged, and we will have future meetings, but I want you to know that I certainly appreciate your efforts, because that complex is in District 5. And the residents, from what I gathered today, are in support of whatever the law enforcement can do to rectify the situation. And I will keep in contact with you and with the residents over there on a regular basis. So if there's some things that they have in mind that we could do jointly that will solve some of the problems, I got the impression today that they're fully willing to support whatever you guys are trying to do. So thank you very much.
Yes, sir. Thank you. That's the impression that I got. I'm not sure what time you met with them, but we met for about an hour, and with some pretty hard and realistic goals. And we're going to come back in a couple of weeks, and it'd be great if you would like to join us with that.
Just let me know. I was there after the second shower of the day.
Okay.
During the first one. That timing tells you anything. After the second shower, that's when I made it over there.
Ours was the first one. Thank you.
Mr. Johnson.
Thank you.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. President. And I just wanted to thank Mayor Hayward, Mr. Reynolds, the City Administrator, and you, Chief, for that fine update. I appreciate that very much. And I also want to thank the men in uniform out there that every day I want to remind our public to put their life on the line and protecting the citizens of this of our great city. And I also want to remind everyone that when it's come before this council, that this council has voted unanimously always to support this police department of ours with equipment purchases, et cetera. I think that sometimes it gets forgotten that by individuals in our community that this council actually supports law enforcement, and that many times I can remember, whether it was camera purchases or whatever, that we vote unanimously to support our police department in a solid, firm way. And again, I just want to thank you, Chief, for the fine job you do, for the fine job of the men in uniform out there on the streets. And again, to Mayor Hayward and to Mr. Reynolds for that update. Thank you.
Thank you,
Mr. Johnson.
Dr. Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'll echo the many thanks that were given out. I had my nice time doing the police academy and my ride along, and it was definitely eye-opening what our officers face daily. I wanted to ask, though, another area that has come to my attention, and Mr. Sansing brought it up earlier, was the downtown area, the recent stabbing and other things. And I know that we have done a few things, like the open container citations as opposed to arrests or whatever, and other things. But I also was concerned when we had our CRA budget briefing about the fact that because of the decrease in property values, we're going to have to cut some of the extra police officers. And you don't have to answer this now, and I'm just hoping we can get partially the new CRA budget, but also some idea of what the police presence downtown on an average day, because I understand we have a lot of off-duty officers who are there hired by the private businesses. And so I think that would help in understanding how we're addressing the crime situation on Palafox Street. Thanks.
Yeah, I can, yes. I mentioned in the budget workshop that the reduction in the CRA funds would cause a reduction in our officers. At the time, I thought there was actually going to be money there. I understand that there is not going to be any money in CRA, so we're going to, effective October 1st, there will not be CRA officers. But we will have officers downtown, because that's what we do. We'll use our neighborhood services officers, and there's so many events downtown that we encourage and have been very fortunate that but a lot of the businesses, the establishments downtown, will hire police officers that make it where we do not have to do that. And so what we'll do is we will maintain that presence downtown. Then we'll have the off-duty officers that are going downtown, and then we have a neighborhood services unit that their job is designed. They also ride bicycles, and they can be downtown. When we had the CRA money, we had CRA officers on bicycles downtown, different locations, and I could put my neighborhood services officers at different locations. Last year, we spent a lot of time during Legion Field. They had some issues with some some neighborhood problems, and now it will spread us a little thin, but we feel confident that we can do what's necessary.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else for Chief Simmons? Thank you, Chief. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. It's really a pleasure now to invite Mr. Paul Jones to come on down and talk a little bit about what we've been doing with our technology in the last several months. As many of you know, approximately about 8-9 months ago now, the mayor had contracted with H-Tube to come in, take a look at our technology, try to give us some kind of a guidebook, if you will, in regards to, first of all, identifying what our issues were and then how we were going to fix them. And also part of that process was the mayor's commitment to bring in a first-class individual that could help lead the organization into the future. And Paul certainly has been that, and it's a delight to work with him and to have him on board. Based upon some of the questions that had come up during the budget proceedings, Paul and I sat down and talked a little bit about it, and thought the best thing to do was frankly just to come in and talk to you about it and let you know what it is we've done, where we're going, kind of give you some milestones as well as some hope to the future about moving the organization forward when it comes to technology. Paul.
Thank you, Mr. Reynolds, and thank you, council members. Again, this is a follow-up to the budget, and I do want to say thank you for the opportunity. One of the first things when I came in, I was blessed to be able to have the H2PC report, because it really let me hit the ground running, and it was really a good foundation for what we're trying to do. So what I'm basically going to do is go over the status, where we are at, and tell you some of the things that we do have going on. First off, when I looked at technology resources and I said, okay, what are the things that we really need to focus on? And the things that I saw was really there's a really need for direction. Where are we going? What are we going to do? One of the things when you look at technology, you look at technology as a whole, it affects any and everything that we do pretty much now. So it's really important that we have a direction. We know where we're doing. That direction is based on return on investment. We have strong leadership. We have governance, which we're going to talk more about when we get into the H2PC report, that everything we do has to align strategically with what this city's trying to do. We plan. Planning is critical. And sometimes we have a tendency in technology to jump. But planning is critical. It's the heart of what we need to be doing and will be doing. Accountability. Anything we do needs to have accountability. We need to be accountable and will be accountable at all levels. Communication, physical infrastructure, which we're going to talk about, and service management. These are the things that I really saw. I said, okay, hey, I think there, and I talked a little bit about there being a pretty good foundation, and I want to make it clear there is a good foundation, but there is a lot of work to be done. And what was kind of exciting to me is the work that needs to be done are on the management and the structure side, the technology. There are some things we're going to talk about there, but the foundation's pretty strong. So it was really a blessing for me to be able to walk in and again have that report. Now, one of the first things we did, and I'm doing and will continue to do for a long time, is we implemented a industry standard set of best practices for technology management, and it's called Information Technology Information Library. And this is truly probably the only and the best set of best practices on the planet. So what's happened, if you realize and you think about how new technology is, the whole management platform is new. I mean, I told this story the other day about, and not long ago when I first started my career at Pensacola Junior College, State College now, we were building an internet, and after I did a presentation, the president said, let's hold off. I think the internet may be a passing fad. I told that last time. But that's not that long ago when you think about how quick technology. So the management, the development, and everything of technology is growing. Started off, we were part, what do we do with them? Well, they're operations, we'll put them under finance. And now we're kind of coming to the realization that we're really a strategic asset, and a big strategic asset. And when you look at the investment that involved, the usage, the productivity, the impact it has on everything, it is a strategic asset. It needs to be treated as such. So we're implementing that. I'm certified, one class away from being a certified instructor in ITIL. We have another ITIL certified person. So this is a foundation that we will build, and it's a foundation built on strong business principles. If we look at the recommendations that we received from H2PC, we'll start and just kind of go through them. The first one was technology governance, which really is management. It really is the management. And I'll go through some of the elements, and it's key. Again, without this strong structure, we're not going to have the services. We're not going to have the overall view that we need to have and will have. If we look at the first bullet there, and the plan, we'll have this fully implemented by September 28th of 2012. We have all the infrastructure in place. We're moving forward with everything. And let's talk to some of the bullet points. One of the things they talked about is portfolio management and service catalog. And when you talk about those things, that's such an important element, because what happens, there's two things in technology that happen. One is you get to move forward and do new things, but every time you do that, you've got this thing called maintenance. You bring on a new software application, you got updates, you've got a whole series of maintenance to do with it. So those have to be balanced. And what happens a lot of times is we make decisions without looking at the whole picture. What a service catalog is a listing of our services. And so when we make decisions, we have not only what we want to do, but what we are doing to implement. Because one of the quickest ways to give poor maintenance is to do too much on this end. So it's got to be balanced. It's got to be looked at the big picture, and that's what the service catalog. We currently have it. It's in final draft review, and we're in really good shape with that. Technology value, I really probably should evaluation, because everything we do has to have evaluation, because there's never a lack of need or demand for technology. I've never walked by an area and somebody going, no, we have everything we need, go away. There's always a need. And so everything we do means we're not doing something else. So we have to have a way of evaluating, and again, making sure that's aligned with the strategic goals of the city. To me, one of the most important, too, is technology governance board. And we're about to put that in place, or we're scheduling hopefully our first meeting in September. And what that is, that's senior leaders that are looking at what we spend, what we do. It's got to be looked at a high level. It's got to. Every expenditure we do, everything we do, because again, if we do one thing somewhere, we're not doing it somewhere else. And again, if you look at the investments, we've got to make sure the maximum ROI is given for everything we do, and it's strategically aligned. What I've seen happen, it's happened here, and I've seen a lot of technology organizations, is we spot check. Yeah, this is great, let's do this. Yeah, we do this, we do that, and suddenly we've got a whole bunch of things going on, but nothing cohesive, nothing that, and also sometimes the left hand doesn't know what the right hand's doing. So that technology governance board and governance really is what's so important to lay that out. Communication, I mean, goes without saying. Communication is critical at all levels. We're developing a communication plan, and some of the things you communicate, one of the biggest things that I heard is service disruptions. And we're going to talk a little bit more about that when I get to physical infrastructure, but we were shooting ourselves in the foot. We were the cause of a lot of those. Is we were taking things down to do updates and not telling anybody. So somebody would go to use it, they were down. So those kind of things, we're going to have those times, but they need to be communicated. We're looking at doing newsletters. We're looking at doing performance reports, a whole series of communications, because everybody should know where we are. Because when we know where we are, we'll know how to get better. Performance measurement. And again, we're not going to be in a world of continuous service improvement if we can't perform, if we don't know where we should be performing, and what those measures, what the baselines are. Recommendation number 2 was technology service management. And this was this is our first big implementation since I came in. This is, I think, one of the most important things we do. Our help desk, our support is our face. If it's not strong, we're not strong. If we're not helping people, technology is not what's important. It's using that technology. And if we're not, I told somebody the other day, he was real proud. He came back and he got a real technologist, a computer. And I said, I think that's a good thing, but I'm a little more proud when I get somebody that doesn't know how to use it, because that's what we're about. And so What we've implemented, and we'll be implementing the end of this month, is a new help desk, centralized help desk and call center. One of the biggest complaints was, who do we call? We don't get anybody. Our tickets fall through the cracks. We don't know what's going on. We're implementing a solid, centralized system that lets people enter tickets online, lets them track them online. Also lets us track them. We guarantee we're going to have a 30-minute response time. We'll also answer the calls. So we're really working on that service improvement, which it should be. Again, we are a service organization. If it's not for the people using technology, you don't need us. We are a service organization, and that's certainly what we're going to build, is the culture of service excellence. But you got to have numbers. Right now, if we said, how many tickets do you have, no one knows. How are we doing? What are we doing? What's our callbacks? What are the issues? And it's also a way for us to be proactive. What we really want to get to be in technology is not reactive. I tell people we are not in the problem-solving business. We're in the problem-prevention business. Because every problem we prevent you from having, we've increased your productivity, or we've decreased your productivity the other way. So it's really important that we have this centralized, this incident management, that we track things, that we give the people the level of support that they need and deserve. And that's what this is going to do. Another strong thing about this is being implemented with our new project plan and the ITIL formation. So we're really excited about doing that. Recommendation number 3, technology blanket support contract. And really, I'm really currently evaluating this a little bit more. When you really read the report and you saw what they were trying to accomplish with this, which is something that needs to be accomplished, it was more the managing implementation of new technologies, and which is critical. I mean, when new technologies, tablets are amazing. They're amazing tools for the right person. Anything new comes out has a usage. We have to be able to adapt to it. We have to be able to get in the enterprise as quickly as we can. Now, there are certain things we have to also make sure security and things that we cover, but those are things that we have to do. We have to have the processes in place as much as the support to make sure that we can implement those successfully. So that's what we're doing with that one right now. Recommendation 4 is project management. That's what we are. IT manages projects. That's what we do. Whether it's an upgrade, whether it's an update, whatever it is, we're managing projects. We have to have a solid project plan, and we're implementing that. The last 2 things we've done, the service, the help desk, we've done based on that project planning, and it's been very successful. We have communication plans, we have training plans, we have implementation plans, we have end users testing. So when we implement this software, it's not going to be a headache, it's going to be a help. So project planning, and one of the things you've got to always look, somebody said to me, well, how do you know what level of project plan? It depends on the scope. I'm not going to develop a major project plan for a 2-day project, but we do need a task list. We do need to think it through and need to make sure we go with our eyes open. So it depends, but that's a critical thing, a critical element, and we're well underway to implementing that. Recommendation number 5 is a request for the MODERNIZE the purchase, and that's being implemented. And that was actually being implemented as I came on board, led by financial services, and it's really a process of decentralizing that service, which avoids some of the double work and antiquated equipment. Recommendations 6 through 10. These are longer-term recommendations. And my big recommendation right now is I think the most important thing we have to do is develop a long-term strategic plan. We have to be able to make decisions based on, again, where we're going to go, strategically align with the city goals, make sure we're all on the same page. Again, what's happening, we have some great technology, but it's pockets. And again, it's not that big picture. And we don't have, when we develop these things, we have to have the policies and procedures to maintain them. And those aren't in place. So I think the long-term strategic plan is critical. Building the infrastructure, the management infrastructure is absolutely critical for this year. And those are the things that we're really focusing on. Now, one thing that wasn't in the report was the physical infrastructure. And we talk about the physical infrastructure, we're really talking about the hardware. The H2PC report focused on really a needed area, and that was the management, but there's a whole physical infrastructure. If we don't have good equipment, we're not reliable service. I don't care how good the other things are, we're not good. So it's critical that those do, and there's a pretty good solid foundation. When we first came on board, I will admit we had a little more downtime. than I'd certainly been used to, and we're doing a lot of things to work to prepare that. We've done some vendor evaluations, and one of the things, the outcome of this is we'll have a report that says, here's the equipment. If this goes down, it'll affect this group for this long. Is that acceptable? Somebody may be able to be down for that period of time, another area may not be. So we have to look again at the things as a whole to make sure we're providing the service. And in summary, I just basically want to say that, you know, I'm just couldn't be happier with where we are. There's a lot of work to do, but, you know, it's good work. It's a good foundation. Many things have been implemented, many more are on their way. I think we have a good plan to implement the H2PC, and then beyond that, to bring solid world-class technology to the city. As I said, the H2PC report laid a great foundation. It really has let us stabilize the technology so we can. Because again, I don't see major, I think last time somebody said, I don't see major investments right now, because I think we got to determine what those investments are going to be. And make sure that we're spending that money, again, the best way we can spend it. So long-term strategic plan is critical. And then the infrastructure, the policies, the processes, the procedures in place to make sure that we can implement and develop, you know, a customer-focused, customer-centered environment. Any questions?
Yes. Any questions? Mr. Weiss, and then Ms. Myers.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Mr. Jones, for coming and sharing this information. I know when I brought up my concerns during the budget, because the commentary didn't address a lot of what you've shared tonight, and thank you for that. You mentioned September 28th. That is to begin implementation.
No, that is
completing.
And that's a great one. Those dates on there are completed.
Okay, so the whole H2, I mean, not the technology purchase, you just said that's a long-range plan, but you expect to have addressed all of H2's recommendations by the end of September?
Well, some of them will go to October. Each one of them I addressed, that date on them is when those will be completed. Okay. The September 28th, all the governance on the first one will be in place and will be addressed.
So each one you put a date.
Yeah, the September 3rd will be the help desk implementation.
And number 4 is November. I see, you do reference that. Thank you.
You're quite welcome.
Thank you, Mr. President.
Yes, ma'am. Ms. Myers.
I just wanted to thank you for the good report.
Thank you.
Did an excellent job. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Anybody from the public? Okay, thank you, Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you.
And that concludes Mayor's report, sir.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. We're moving into council communication.
Yes.
Okay.
You're first up.
I'm going to get ahead of it. I did just want to ask a quick question, and I don't know if there's an answer tonight, because it's a question of the state contract for mowing that we do not have for the city. And technically, I don't know in everyone else's district, but our own ordinances are being broken in some of our public spaces. And, you know, I live near Scenic Highway, and unless I missed it while I was gone a week, it doesn't appear to have been touched the entire summer. So I would urge, I know that when this contract first switched over 2 years ago, Mr. Garza urged us as council and as citizens, if we saw an issue within a park or along the roadways, because they're doing the state roadways, to let them know, because that's part of the process of correcting some of the problems. Bayou Boulevard was mowed as if it was a hayfield and it looked terrible. They fixed that. They came back right away. So I am lodging my concerns about Scenic Highway's mowing schedule, and would like just an information email sent out as to what that schedule is. And then as a follow-up to that, and this is part of a changeover in government, and now Mr. Flaherty moving on too, but a lot of the work that I've done on Scenic Highway has been volunteer work with the fire department and the Navy and neighborhoods. And it was discussed that once, at least within Bay Bluffs Park, once the citizens came in and cleaned that up, that the city would work to maintain it after that, because we've done all the hard labor of it and cleared it out. It would just take some mowing and some of the hedge trimmers to keep it clean. And that's not happening, so I'd also like an opportunity, because I have to go directly through the mayor. I thought this forum would be a good time to ask Mr. Reynolds for some time with possibly Mr. Garza or whoever he'd like for me to speak with on arranging or discussing that further. I know I brought it up in my budget requests, and would just like to hear what options we might have to take care of some of those issues. Thank you. And the other thing I want to mention, I've brought some artifacts here from a group that the U.S. Department of State had visiting, and it's from the country of Moldova. And some of the artifacts I've put out there, I wanted to share with the citizens. They were gifts to our community. And this was a really significant visit because it was their police modernization of their entire country. And they came to America to research that. So I'm proud that they came to America. I'm even more proud that Pensacola was able to share some of their expertise. Officer Worley was able to spend some time with them. They're looking at several things. Their information technology, so I referred them to the website that any citizen, anyone in the world really, because of the World Wide Web, is able to look at crimes in any specific area, color-coded. It's very user-friendly, and the wonderful website that's been put together by one of the officers over at the PPD, Officer Mike Wood. And also their special forces were interested in some of the things that we do. Their SWAT team, basically, and then white-collar crime. And believe it or not, we have white-collar crime investigators as well at the PPD and then on the state level that collaborate. That's the wonderful thing about joining forces. You've seen what the chief has talked about with the city and the county, and also some of the statewide and some of the federal help that we can enlist when situations like we have right now are happening. So I invite you to come look at that, the artifacts after the meeting, and I'm happy to share any more information you'd like on the visit from the country of Moldova. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Geralds.
Thank you, Mr. President. And first of all, I'd like to make you all aware of, if you're wondering why I keep running in and out, it's because in the WIPS conference room, they are viewing this is a second opportunity for people to see the MGT report, and those individuals that may not have been available on Monday to hear and to see that report, I've had a DVD prepared, and there are some people in that room that are reviewing that report for the first time. I've seen it more than once, and as you can all imagine, the first time around with a report like, and this is a very important report, and as I was about to say, as you can all imagine, I don't think we ran out and married our spouses after the first time we saw them. There had to be some second reviews and other things, so we had to make sure that we understood, and I'm sure she was doing the same thing about me. But it's important with such an important report is to give people a second opportunity to see it, and particularly those that may not have looked at it on Monday. And I would suggest, I'll go as far as to suggest that some of you may want to see it again so that we are clear on the points, the discoveries, and the procedures to be followed. And we hear a lot about procedures, and it's important to review the material. I don't expect you, and I wouldn't dare make an assignment for you to read all 300 pages again, but to take a look at the DVD just in case you may have missed something the first time around. The other thing I want to talk about is the fact that my phone is ringing constantly now, and it seems that folks are putting me in charge of a lot of things that really don't have anything to do with my role as a council member, but it's important to keep in contact with the general public about things that arise. And my comments during open forum about the gentleman's concern about keeping it local, and that was a very heated discussion about whether or not we should go outside of Escambia County to do business as they have been in the past. And of course, they continue to do it that way. So when you get into those kinds of discussions, and when there is a lot of rock throwing, so to speak, it's the one with the bigger rock who wins. And if you come in there with a pocket full of little rocks and start throwing them, you're not going to be successful. So if you have an idea to come back, and it's something that we need to think about, should we do that at the local level, and we need to discuss it and make a serious decision. My last comment will be based on some of the things that Chief Simmons brought to us and his concerns, and I don't want us to be shy, but I have a feeling that if the rate of crime continues as it is, there will be the day that we might have to come and look at whether or not we need more law enforcement on the street. We can only stretch our present staff so far, but we need to have it in our minds if the chief comes before us with such a request, at the rate of crime in East Hill and Brownsville and Warrington and all the other places in the city, there may come a time that will be faced with a decision to increase our law enforcement team. So y'all keep that in mind, because unless the criminals move to another city, we're on the verge of expanding our force in order to protect our citizens. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Johnson.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. President. Yeah, I just wanted to, again, I wanted to thank the mayor and Mr. Reynolds on the prompt attention to the questions we brought up about the tree fund and the trees being planted on Lakeview. Thank you, Mr. Reynolds, for that prompt response, and I do appreciate that. And further thanking the mayor and Mr. Reynolds for the assistance on the Myra Flores building there on the corner of 17th and Jackson. They're just north of the graffiti bridge there, an iconic landmark here in Pensacola that I enjoy, some don't. But anyhow, moving on to the Flores building, I was at a Brim Fishermen Association meeting with Mr. Sansing the other evening, and it was unbearably hot there. And I just want to let the public know there was about 40 or 50 folks there. Other folks used that, Boy Scouts, et cetera, that the mayor and Mr. Reynolds and myself and others here at City Hall are working diligently to try to get that problem addressed with the air conditioner there. I have actually pledged some of my non-discretionary funds for that effort with the air conditioner, and I just want everyone to know that that we're working on that, and that we hope to have some resolution to that soon. I know my girlfriend and I were there, and I was sweating when I left there. I had to change shirts to go to my next meeting. So we're aware of it, we're working on it, and we appreciate it, and hopefully that problem will be resolved soon. Thank you, Mr. President.
Okay. Next up is Mr. Townsend, then Ms. Myers, Dr. Pratt, and Mr. Spencer.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just want to mention that something that's going on tomorrow, which hopefully some of us can attend. They have a dedication, ribbon cutting and building dedication ceremony for Marie K. Young, Wedgewood Community Center and Park, being named after her, brand new building out there. And District 3, the district that Commissioner Young represents, crosses over a lot of our city lines, and she has done a remarkable job, not only in the county but in the city. So I think it's well deserving, and to show how much we appreciate her, I would hope some of us can attend that, and additionally a lot of the citizens can go out, and which will be a wonderful day for Commissioner Young. The other thing is, I would hope that in some states that we have some plans where we can recognize Justin Gatlin, who has excelled in the Olympics, and I suspect that the mayor's office will be working on that, and I'm sure the county will also. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you, sir. And that is 3420 Pinestead Road for the Marie K. Young. Okay. Yes. Okay, thank you. Ms. Myers.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. First, I would like for the community that uses Burgess Road to know that the And the reason I don't believe it's true, I mean, for one thing, I don't feel that it's true in my heart. The News Journal mentioned the lawsuit I filed against the mayor. And I want to explain one more time to the Pensacola News Journal and the public the nature of that lawsuit. The nature of this lawsuit is we're seeking the court, or asking the court to give us an interpretation of the charter, a specific provision in the charter. It's called a quo warranto, meaning by what authority? It's a type of lawsuit that's rarely used, and when it is used, it's used involving public officials. Normally not at a local level. These are lawsuits that are usually brought against governors and higher public officials. But basically, it's asking the court, you look at the wording in this charter and you tell us what it means. We tried to resolve this issue through my attorney, and the mayor did not feel, apparently, that his position was going to change. Now, having said that, since the lawsuit was filed, I have had 2 luncheons meetings with Mr. Asmar. We met for lunch on 2 separate occasions in public and had very long, productive conversations. I value his opinion, I value his friendship, and I am very appreciative of the time that he has taken to meet with me. And I want the public to know that. And it's something the public isn't aware of because of the way the press reports on city council activity. And I think it gives a misimpression. So I want the public to know, as far as I'm concerned, I have a good relationship with our chief of staff. There may be a few people on council who may not have a good relationship with the chief of staff. I don't know. But I do. And I value the relationship I have with the mayor, the chief of staff, Mr. Reynolds, and but sometimes we have to agree to disagree. And sometimes we need a third, unbiased party, hopefully, like a judge, will be unbiased, to look at something and say, okay, folks, this is my opinion. Mr. Messer has asked the Attorney General for an opinion. You have, haven't you? We haven't gotten a response on an issue. Well, anyway, because, you know, in that particular situation, we thought it might help to have another set of eyes on it, on an issue. Now, the last issue I want to bring up about this article that I consider council bashing, which you have the First Amendment right to do that. You can bash us all day long. I may not like it, but you know what? Too bad. I'll have to get over it, won't I? I took that into consideration when I ran for office, whether or not I could take all this abuse, y'all, but I figure as old as I'm getting, you know, it's something I've never done before, may as well try it. Anyway, the last issue I want to take up with the Pensacola News Journal, I'm going to have to do a little, well, I'm not going to say it anyway. The quote here, and it's referring to the council not being productive. It says here that we should be looking out for neighborhoods, making them safe, and I agree with that. Okay, the people come first, the neighborhoods come first. And then it goes on to say, anything else is secondary. Any time spent dithering about other items, whether it's chickens in the city or if the mayor's chief of staff is a meanie, is time wasted. Now, I don't recall anybody on the city council referring to the chief of staff as a meanie. I certainly haven't, and I don't think that's the opinion of this council. So we've already gotten that straightened out with the Pensacola News Journal. Now, as to the chicken ordinance, what offends me about the statement in the Pensacola News Journal about the chicken ordinance is that issue was brought to us by people who are just everyday tax-paying citizens. They may not be the most well-connected people. They may not be the most powerfully connected people. But any time a citizen brings an issue to this city council, no matter how trivial the Pensacola News Journal may think it is, no matter how trivial anybody thinks it is, to that person, it's important. And I'm going to address their concerns. I don't care what their issue is. If somebody comes down here with an issue, it's going to be addressed by this city council, and I am proud of this city council for addressing the concerns of citizens who want to simply raise chickens and have fresh eggs. But the good thing that came out of that ordinance is we took a bad ordinance that would have had, if people knew it existed and lived by it, had very bad results in this city by allowing unlimited number of chickens and roosters and so forth. So there were a lot of people who were very passionate about this issue. It's probably one of the most passionate issues, believe it or not, that I've had people call me about. And so just because somebody else doesn't think something is important doesn't mean that it's not important. Because the most important thing to most people is where they live, the neighborhoods they live in, the homes. That's the most important thing to me, I'll tell you, is my home and my neighborhood. Because that's where I'm at 24 hours a day. If I'm not there physically, I'm there in my mind because that's where I'm going back to. So, the last thing I want to say to the Pensacola News Journal about this chicken ordinance, if it were so trivial, why did you spend so much ink on it? And I see Nate out there smiling. That makes me feel good because he's the one that put that ink in there on about that chicken ordinance. We still friends? So that's all I've got to say.
Okay. Thank you, Ms. Myers. Dr. Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. First, since Ms. Myers brought it up, I'm going to spend a moment talking about that editorial. But first, I do want to thank Mr. Monroe for his article today. It was very well written. And also Jeremy Morrison also wrote well-balanced articles about what's going on in City Hall. And it's not just animosity. There are issues we're working through. I wanted to address, I was looking on Monday at something that was rather ironic. Mr. Schneider, the executive editor or something of the newspaper, had a blog post, I don't know if it was written on Monday or not, extolling the virtues of the First Amendment. And he said, speech, 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 that's very good. And in the editorial in the paper on Monday, they said, all they do is talk, talk, talk. Now, okay, there might be a difference between talk and speech, but pretty much is similar. You know, I will admit our meetings sometimes go a little long, but we are the voice of the people. They come for open forum, but we're the ones who hear from them and bring their concerns. Not everyone can make it during the evening meetings or the Monday meetings. And so the things we say are what we're hearing in our community. We're the public face of our city. We're on TV right now. And, you know, the mayor has meetings, televised press conferences, but we're on regularly. Everybody knows where to look for their city government in action. I know some of the things we deal with seem trivial, but they are the things that need to happen in order to make this government work. We ask a lot of questions, but it's because we need to know the answers. So when we go back to the citizens and they say, why did you vote for chickens? We can say, this is why I voted for chickens. And so our meetings, we could do better. Everyone could. But we do talk because it's important for people to hear the answers and the questions. And regarding the impetus of their article was the tabling of the budget. I can't speak for the rest of you, but I believe that leading up to that tabling motion was a discussion, wait a minute, we can't vote to approve the budget until we've had public input. There's state law that says we have to have the public input. And we as a council value the input from our community. And so that's why we tabled it. It was not to circumvent justice and, you know, be little sticks in the mud. It was, we need something to do. We know we can table it, and that was a way to ensure that we got the input from the public. Now, there are other ways we could have made the motion, but that wouldn't work. It was not an effort to derail the budget. It was an effort to make sure that that budget got the sounding it needed in the public. I mean, I was just in the back a few minutes ago speaking with Mr. Barker about, you know, during the budget workshops, we heard about the CRA budget being totally changed, the library budget being totally changed. We couldn't approve a budget that day without some of the information that was needed. And so I believe that tabling was a good decision. We could, you know, again, tabling's a funny motion, but the idea and the intent was right. And I think that editorial was inappropriate, and I think that we need to end the open season on shooting the council. I think that it's become the habit du jour of this community, and I think that we are doing our best to do the best interests of the city. And on a happier note, I will say that I was very proud of the council on Monday on the effort to do the Complete Streets Committee. And I haven't worked out all of the details. Mr. President put me in charge of figuring out how to start that first meeting, but I'm going to try and keep the energy going and try to see about setting up a meeting the week of August 20th. And there are 5 of us on the committee, Mr. Spencer, Mr. Townsend, Ms. Myers, and Mr. Weiss, and myself. And each of us, as I understand, is to nominate someone. And so at that meeting, it would be nice if we can bring those nominees in and have them be part of our first meeting. And so I will be working with the clerk and Ms. Major to set that up. And I want to commend Mr. Spencer for already getting his bike buddy, who I didn't quite get his background, but to have him already up here looking into this, I think it's going to be a very productive effort, and I look forward to working with you. And also, if any citizens are interested in being on the committee or coming and giving their input, because it's, even though there'll be certain people on the committee, I think we need a broad input from the community. So if you want to contact any of us and get on the committee or to know when the meeting is, we'd appreciate hearing from you. Thank you.
Mr. Spencer.
Thank you. I want to recognize our fellow council member, Mr. Johnson, and thank him as well as others that would be, including Collier Merrill as chairman of CMPA, the mayor, and also a representative for Mr. Studer, Andrew Rothfeder, in their successful negotiations. I want to pause for a minute and thank all fellow council members for supporting what was Mr. Johnson's recommendation that all of those negotiations occur in the open as a public meeting. I think it was a breakthrough, a milestone event in the history of Pensacola government. And because of that, because of the successful negotiations, the citizens should know that we now have basically that group, and again, the council facilitated by Mr. Johnson's representation, the expediting annual lease payments of approximately more than $100,000 a year. So the process was expedited, it was transparent, and I just want to say thank you for that. Also, there's no reason for me to go into any detail, but simply reiterate my endorsement of some of the comments that have been stated about the council's earnest effort to make this community better, and I too look forward to the media finding perhaps some other venue for entertainment.
Are there any other council members who wish to speak? Mr. Johnson and Mr. Geralds.
Yeah, thank you very much, and I'll make mine quick. I just want to thank Mr. Spencer for recognizing me, but I want everyone to remember that I couldn't have moved forward without the support of this council, and I want this council to know that I appreciate their support and confidence in me, and that I want this council to know that without them and their support that we couldn't have moved forward, and that I take these responsibilities of mine very, very seriously, even though we're bashed and print media. I take these responsibilities very seriously, and I think they're very important in moving this city forward. And I want to thank the mayor. I want to thank Mr. Collier Merrill representing the CMPA. I want to also thank Mr. Studer, Mr. and Mrs. Studer for their moving forward. And you know, they've stepped forward. They've taken the first bite of the apple on those parcels across the street. And I expect good things to happen. We're going to hear more about this at the Committee of the Whole here in about 10 days about the deal itself, and I feel very comfortable about the deal. And I'm looking forward to bringing that forward to this City Council and get their, hopefully, approval. And I would also say that I've asked Mr. Spears to send this council an email of those terms, and I respectfully request that the council run it by their real estate friends and make sure that there's any questions that we can answer those on I believe it's August 20th. But again, I couldn't do it without the support of this City Council. I'm very proud of this City Council, and I'm proud to be a member of it. Thank you.
Mr. Geralds.
Thank you. Yes, Mr. President, and this needs to be stated for our benefit as well as the benefit of the public and those who may be viewing us on television. As you all can recall, we agreed to during the summer months to resort to a summer schedule. Luckily, we're getting back into the groove of 2 meetings a month. And what we did to ourselves is when we take everything and cram it into one agenda in 1 month, it is exhausting for the council, staff, and the public. And that may be where the problem is. So as we are getting back into the fall season, back on a schedule of 2 meetings per month, we may want to revisit the idea of cramming a month's worth of information into 1 meeting, because it is really exhausting for everybody. Even people at home watching television, they are likely to turn away after the 4th or 5th hour. So if we look at what we're doing and what we've done with those 1 meetings per month, we may be able to get back to some normality by just meeting 2 meetings in a month, even during the summer, because we beat ourselves half to death with those 1 meetings. So y'all think about that. We did it. Thank you.
Thank you. And I just want to take an opportunity, if I might, and it may be editorializing Ms. Dubuisson, but I just wanted to tell every member of council that spoke to that article just how much I appreciated your comments. But I've told 2 different news organs in the past week, and told Ms. DeWeese, I think it was Monday after the meeting, that I have a tremendous amount of respect for each and every one of you that I serve with, and great affection for you. There are times that I find our process to be somewhat quarrelsome. That said, I have noticed a sea change. I don't know what brought it about, how it came about, but in the last 3 or 4 months, there has been this coming together and working as a team. We may end up with a 5-4 vote, but we move on and we go on to the next issue, and each issue is a new day. And I just want to thank every member of council for that level of cooperation. The one thing I do want to talk about on the budget that Dr. Pratt had brought up, I had told one of the press organs that the council punted on the budget. It may not have been the best selection of words. Another paper also picked it up and repeated that. And but I guess the reason I made mention of that, I was a little baffled, because if you remember back to last year in the budget process, we were very frustrated that we were getting beat up in the press because all we could do is take straw votes, and the straw votes were meaningless. And so what this council asked for last year during the budget process was they wanted to sit in a formal meeting so that they could take a vote on it. And I guess the fact that we tabled it is that we did take a vote. But I was expecting to send some sort of message going into the budget discussion in September. But anyway, I'm glad it's a new day on council, and I especially thank Ms. Myers for her remarks tonight. Thank you. It brings us to the consent agenda. I'm sorry, do you want me to read out each item, A through J? The title?
You don't have to.
Okay. These are items that the city council, or sitting as the committee of the whole on Monday, voted unanimously to approve, and then at the end of the meeting, voted to put them onto this consent agenda so we can just take care of it with a single vote. What's your pleasure, council?
Move to approve.
Second.
Motion and a second. Any discussion? Do you want to hold any items? Anybody in the public would like to discuss any of these items? Okay, please vote. Okay, that passes unanimously. There are no votes from the committee of the whole that need to be voted on, and that brings us to our ordinances on the first reading, I believe. No.
CRA?
CRA, yes. Mr. Spencer.
We did not have a CRA meeting, and hopefully all of you received notice from either the CRA administrator or the clerk that I asked for your forgiveness in terms of some of those are extended, because of my extended absence for a summer trip 10 days away in Montreal, and that those items that had been requested to be on the CRA agenda will be forthcoming at the next meeting.
Okay, thank you, sir. And so that concludes your report?
Yes, it does.
Okay. Madam Clerk, ordinances first reading.
There are none.
Ordinances on the second reading.
Item 15A is proposed ordinance number 18-12, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance amending sections 4-2-1, 4-2-3, 4-2-4, and 4-2-5, and repealing section 4-2-6 (b) of the Code of the City of Pensacola, Florida, providing protection for animals, providing regulations for keeping poultry and other fowl, providing for severability, repealing clause, providing an effective date.
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion and a second. Discussion. Audience. Please vote. Okay, and that passes 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 to 1, and Mr. Johnson is absent for the vote. 15B.
Item 15B is proposed ordinance number 19-12, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance amending section 6-2-1 of the Code of the City of Pensacola, Florida, providing for the establishment, composition, compensation, terms of office, vacancies of the Parks and Recreation Board, providing for severability, repealing clause, providing an effective date.
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion, second, discussion. Audience, please vote. And that passes unanimously with Mr. Johnson absent. 15C.
Item 15C is proposed ordinance number 20-12, an ordinance to be entitled, an ordinance creating sections 14-1-291 through 14-1-320 of the Code of the City of Pensacola, Florida, establishing green building requirements, guidelines and incentives, providing for severability, a repealing clause, and providing an effective date.
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion, second, discussion. Audience, please vote. And that passes unanimously. Resolutions.
Item 16A is resolution number 29-12, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution of the City of Pensacola establishing a complete streets policy to integrate bicycling, walking, and public transit with the city's transportation programs, projects, and policy initiatives.
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion, second, discussion. Ms. Myers.
Yes, I just want to thank the mayor. In fact, I did thank him in person today for bringing this resolution forward and getting this issue on track. And Dr. Pratt has already brought up the committee that's been formed, and it might not have happened had it not been for the mayor bringing this resolution to council. And I just want him to know how much I appreciate this. This is a very important first step, and I'm glad to support it.
Mr. Geralds.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just a brief comment, and I want to also congratulate Councilmember Pratt on her efforts for complete streets. And I wanted her to know that I mentioned it on Tuesday, I believe it was, at a public forum, political forum of sorts, and received an applause. There are a lot of people out there who are interested in the concept of complete streets, and even though I don't know if you were there, but there was a great deal of interest in that particular project and this resolution. Thank you.
I was also at that forum, and it was the only thing that really got resounding applause. So, okay, what's your pleasure? We have the motion and second already?
We do have a motion.
We do?
Okay. Any more discussion? Please vote. That passes unanimously. 16B.
Item 16B is resolution number 30-12, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution authorizing and directing the mayor of the City of Pensacola to execute a supplemental joint participation agreement with the Florida Department of Transportation for Acquire Land Commerce Park at the Pensacola International Airport.
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion and a second, discussion. You wanted to speak to the previous item?
Just really quickly, I
Okay.
wanted to find out if Dr. Pratt would like the information on the contact at Complete Streets Coalition, or if I should just follow up and forward that information to you.
Or maybe at the first meeting if we...
Okay, I'll have more information at the first meeting. Thank you.
Okay, thanks. Okay. Motion and a second. Okay, discussion. Audience, please vote. That passes unanimously. 16C.
Item 16C is resolution number 31-12, a resolution to be entitled, a resolution of the City Council of the City of Pensacola authorizing the renewal of the authority to grant certain economic development ad valorem tax exemptions established by previous City Council action pursuant to Section 196.1995 for 10 years, providing that subject to approval by referendum of the voters of the City of Pensacola on November 6, 2012, such exemption authority be renewed. directing the supervisory elections to place such referendum question on the general election ballot of November 6, 2012, providing ballot language, directing the city clerk of the City of Pensacola to advertise notice of such referendum election, providing for an effective date.
Move the approval.
Second.
Motion is second. Discussion. Audience, please vote. And that passes unanimously. Unfinished business. I'd like to invite Ms. Reagan back up to the lectern and just open discussion up on this. Mr. Townsend.
I'd like to raise a question regarding the process in bringing this particular topic up again. And I'd like to find out, is there a certain procedure that we have to follow when you bring these up, a prevailing party or whatever? And I think we might be venturing into that area rather than bringing it back up on the unfinished business, because we were done with it, and now to bring it back, it requires a certain procedure.
Well, and I would ask both the city attorney and for the city clerk, who is our unofficial best parliamentarian that we have, and is that my understanding would be is that what we would have to do is to have somebody from the prevailing side bring the issue up, and then we'd have to vote on that. And then, really, if you're doing it on a reconsideration vote, then it can be debated, but it can't be amended or changed. It would just be another chance to take a bite at that same apple. So, but I would wait for both our legal and our clerk to weigh in on that. I know Mr. Weiss wants to speak, but I'd like to have Mr. Townsend's question answered first.
I just want to add to
Okay.
the question. As if there is any other way for us to ask this question, I think it's very painful to ask this council to investigate itself willingly, I guess, is what the issue is.
Yeah.
So I'm not trying to ruffle anything. I just want to know what
Okay.
options we have to dispose of this issue. That's what I'm trying to find out.
Okay. So, Mr. Attorney, you're on deck.
Thank you, Mr. President. I would invite the input of the clerk, but I concur with your opinion.
I agree with your opinion, Mr. President.
Okay. Ms. Myers.
Could you restate your opinion?
Okay.
Sorry.
Is once a vote has been taken, the only way that it can never be brought up again within a 12-month period is for a party on the prevailing side, whether it's somebody that was in favor of it or was in favor against it. And if you'll remember, there's a famous vote you were involved in. It was a 4-1 vote regarding the retention pond.
Right.
Your one vote was the prevailing side, and you were able to move to reconsider that vote. And nobody else but you could have done that. Okay. And so I still want to thank you for that vote. It looks gorgeous over there.
Well, I know.
Okay.
I'm glad I changed my mind. Anyway.
Okay.
Okay. Well, it seems, if I remember correctly, that our vote was unanimous, so I guess we were all on the prevailing side. So I'm going to, I'm going to make a motion that, help me.
It would just be a move to reconsider that previous question regarding the audit selection committee approving Salt Marsh for the next year.
Okay, I'm just going to make the motion that he just stated that we bring up for reconsideration.
Yes. And I have a feeling is there a second on that?
Well, I guess there has to be a second. I don't think that's what we took action on. After that failed in committee, we took action to continue Salt Marsh.
Yes.
There was some discussion here, and there was the opinion that I read in the record by Mr. Messer, and my concern about are we in order as a council, are we exposed legally because of the state statute question. So it's an odd situation that we're trying to take a vote on something that we need addressed on a state level. So I respect all that's being done, but I don't know that we're clear on what we took action on.
Well, I wished I had that motion before me that we took, but that, I'm just going from my recollection of it, and yours is somewhat different. But before we don't have a second. In order to continue this, we need a second.
I'll second.
Okay, got the second. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd just like to inform council that this contract has been signed and the auditors start on Monday.
Okay. So we've got a motion and a second. You still want it to be voted on, Ms. Myers?
Well, I'm not sure what action we need to take, but Ann Regan, would you like to come up and share your thoughts on what you think because you brought this issue up, what you think we should do?
That is in order. We can debate it. We just can't amend the previous vote.
Did you vote, you made a motion to reconsider your action to approve this contract with Saltmarsh for another year, correct? Mm-hmm. To reconsider that vote?
To bring it up for reconsideration, yes, to discuss it.
Okay, and there cannot be any discussion of that, am I correct?
No, there can be discussion of it. It just cannot be amended.
Okay, well, don't you think that before you decide whether you should reconsider this motion that you passed to have this contract with Saltmarsh renewed, that you all should have read the contract? Did you read this contract, Mr. Hall, before you suggested that it be continued? I bet not. And I bet that none of you have read this contract before you agreed that it should be renewed. Because if you had read the contract, you would not have renewed the contract. There's the contract, according to the law, there's supposed to be in here, according to the state law, if you want to have this be the selection, the Saltmarsh be selected to be your auditor, there are things that are supposed to be in this contract that aren't there. For instance, there's supposed to be compensation in here. The city council is supposed to decide the terms of the contract, and one of the things in the state law there has to be a provision specifying the services to be provided and the fees or other compensation for such services. It's not in here because it's for 2012, but that's what's supposed to be in the contract. A provision requiring that the invoices or fees or other compensation be submitted in sufficient detail to demonstrate compliance with the terms of the contract. That's not in here. The city council is supposed to negotiate the contract, and management is not supposed to be involved. This contract was negotiated by Mr. Bonfield, the city manager. There are other provisions in here that are not in compliance with the statute, including that the statute provides that the auditors have to talk to the president of the city council and discuss their comments. That's not in this contract. You haven't provided for all of the legal requirements when you agreed that this contract would serve as the contract for selecting an auditor. That's what I'm saying. And most importantly, I'll say it again, before any responsible city council member approves a contract to be renewed, you must have reviewed the contract. So since no one appears to have read the contract, I would ask you to vote to reconsider that motion that you passed, calling this contract the new contract.
Okay, and I didn't want to interrupt you since I'd invited you down to the lectern, but the clerk has informed me we're not even allowed to open this for discussion until we vote to whether to reconsider it or not. Now, if we vote no not to reconsider, then it's just a dead issue. If we do vote to reconsider, then it would open it up for debate on the previous question. So we need to take a vote here. Okay? Please vote. Okay. Okay, that fails on a 3-5 vote. Mr. Johnson, Ms. Gerald's absent. Please clear the lights. Brings us to new business. If Mr. Mueller, I believe, is the one that wanted to speak to this, but we need to have some sort of motion on the floor just to be able to discuss it. It doesn't have to be a motion.
I move that the East Government Street Homeowners or Neighborhood Association be included on the agenda of our next committee of the whole.
Second.
Okay, got a motion and a second. Mr. Reynolds.
Thank you, Mr. President. Just FYI for council, this topic will be on the agenda for the next committee of the whole. And obviously, if it's an agenda item, then the public will have every opportunity to speak on the issue.
Okay, well, that kind of makes it a moot point unless you're just wanting to vote to, affirm,
I just wanted to make sure that the information that the Neighborhood Association has is included as part of the agenda in preparation for our discussion, that it's not new information that we're given the day of. That's very complicated in that setting to review it and understand the issue. So,
Sir, if you'll make sure that the clerk has a copy of that, she can get it to staff to distribute with that material when it's on the...
In advance of the meeting.
Yes, sir.
and I'll withdraw my motion.
Okay, so we'll see you, I guess, on the 20th.
Yes, thank you very much.
President Hall, may I ask him a question?
Yes, ma'am.
It's my understanding from talking with some of the residents who attended the, I think it was 4-day workshop, that they have come up with their own report. Is that correct? The neighborhood has.
It's my understanding that the original, there were 4 meetings. At the 4th meeting, we came up with a consolidated report working with the West Florida Regional Planning Council. And it's my understanding that the final notes of that report were not saved in the computer, and an actual final report of that meeting didn't exist. So we decided to make sure that this thing came up before the council by drafting what we thought we had agreed to at that same meeting.
Okay, now the West Florida Regional Planning Council will be presenting their report and a presentation. And it's my understanding that the community wants to present its report separately from the West Florida Regional Planning Council. Is that correct?
I don't think it would be separately. I had planned to be one of the speakers when the West Florida Planning Council spoke. It had originally been planned that the meetings that we had broke into subgroups, and each of the team leaders on the subgroups would speak at the presentation. I was going to be one of those speakers, and I'll still be one of those speakers. It's just that if there was no planning council presentation, we still wanted to go ahead with what we thought we had agreed to.
I'm certainly going to give the gentleman an opportunity to speak during those discussions. What I would ask you to do, sir, and this is what I ask almost every group to do, is to try to condense your discussion down to about 10 minutes, because that 10 minutes sometimes can turn into 20 and 30 questions, when you get all the different questions that are going to go on.
That's not a problem. I had planned to speak for probably 3 or 4 minutes, and so 10 minutes is no problem at all.
Okay.
Thank you very much.
See you on the 20th. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I've got a bunch of lights on here, so I'm just going to start down with Dr. Pratt and move this way.
Thank you, Mr. President. Actually, this is probably in the old business realm, but I received the email from Mr. Messer the other day about the question of departments. and the definition and how we deal with that issue within the charter. And he had attached the Allen Norton and Blue letter that has been used to justify various things. And my understanding of that letter was that the question being asked that organization was responding to was more about the civil service question. And they discussed the definition of, or the mayor's ability to lay out the organization of the city. But that did ring a bell with me, and I thought maybe having an outside firm weigh in on this would be valuable. I saw in the letter something about, when there's two laws pertaining to the same subject but containing apparent inconsistent language, then the courts do X, Y, and Z. And I think clearly we have a situation where if the mayor can organize everything and the council has this department thing, if the mayor chooses to organize everything as divisions, then that renders part of the charter null and void, which doesn't really make sense. And I was wondering if it might be feasible to have an outside firm weigh an opinion on how those two parts of the charter can work together to create a government that makes sense. I think that this council has been bemused by the various definitions that have been going on, and I think it would be nice for us to get a clear answer. And I understand Mr. Messer has, he's got loyalties everywhere, and it might just be cleaner for all of us to just have an outside opinion.
Well, did you get an opportunity to read the opinion he had from an outside law firm?
The Allen Norton and Bloom, but
Yeah.
my point is that was about civil service, and they sort of referred to, okay, the mayor has the way to deal with departments, but then it says, but the council appoints the department heads, and I just think that if we ask specifically, how do we deal with those two parts of the charter that have this very intricate dance, and I think that would be nice to have a clean definition and structure for us for going forward under this form of government.
Okay.
Now, I don't know if I should make a motion or if we can just ask Mr. Messer to consider it.
Mr. Messer, which would you prefer?
My preference would be whatever the will of this body is expressed through a majority opinion.
Okay.
Well, then I will then make a motion that we ask Mr. Messer to get an opinion from outside counsel on how the two provisions in the charter regarding departments, the council's responsibility and the mayor's responsibility, work together in this government.
I'll second.
Okay, that's a second. Now, what I would like for you to do, to me, the motion is just a little bit on the vague side. So what I would ask the council's permission to do is authorize you to craft the specific question that you want answered and submit that through Mr. Messer's office.
Sure, I can do that.
Okay? Yes.
Yes, as the maker of the second, I just wanted to share, while I was president, this question came up as a concern of council, and I went into a great amount of detail on the provisions of the charter and how one provision doesn't stand exclusively of the other in the duties and the powers of both bodies. And I'm happy to share that again through Ms. Major or through the clerk, however that should be done, to expedite, the questions that we're actually asking. So, just wanted to say that in public.
Okay. All right.
Sunshine issue.
Any other comments on this particular issue?
Is my light coming on?
Well, it is, but it's probably on for something different. I've
No,
got
it's
it.
actually on for
Yeah,
this
so if
one.
you want to speak to this topic, just raise your hand.
Yeah,
Okay,
okay.
Ms. Meyer.
I don't know why this has to be so complicated. To me, it's pretty straightforward what the charter says, that the mayor has the responsibility or authority to organize the city, but under his third enumerated power or duty, powers and duties, He is to keep the city council informed of its government. And I just think that he just, that it doesn't require a legal opinion. I think the language is plain and unambiguous, that the council has the responsibility and authority to approve department heads that are brought to us by the mayor. The mayor brings the department heads to us for approval that he's chosen. I think what we need to know is what departments exist and who's the head of those departments. That's what I would like to know. I would like to, just a list of what departments exist in this city and who's the head of them. Also, I'd like to know what divisions exist within those departments. And I think a lot of this is just semantics. When I look at, the only thing Mr. Messer could really come up with was Black's Law Dictionary definition of department and division, which basically they sounded pretty much the same to me. So I just don't know why, I don't think we can make decisions about the budget unless we know how this city is organized and structured. And I don't know who's the head of, what departments we have anymore, who's the head of them, what's a division within a department. If we could just get those simple explanations, it would be tremendously helpful, and it wouldn't have to be so complicated and get because I don't think there's a legal opinion out there. I don't think there's anything to research, and that's just my opinion. But if you think there is, you can draft the question as President Hall has suggested and give it to Mr. Messer. But to me, it just shouldn't be so complicated.
Dr. Pratt.
Thank you, Mr. President. In response to Ms. Meyer's comments, it shouldn't be this complicated, but there are a lot of things that might be obvious to one of us about how the charter should be interpreted that might not be obvious to others, hence your lawsuit. And I just think that this is a clean way. I think we've bristled repeatedly over when housing with a $16 million budget, who deals with federal grants and other really unique things, is called a division. It sort of seems to fly in the face of reason. And I'm willing to stand by an opinion either way, but I just think that for us to feel comfortable going forward under this charter, we need to know how those two parts of the charter work together. Because right now they're not working together. We're sort of butting heads on those questions. And I just think that this is a way, as Mr. Messer often has said, it eventually goes to the courts. And, maybe if we can just get an outside legal opinion, that would help us understand what our responsibilities are and how we can make sure that we're living up to our responsibility under this charter. The Believe in Better Pensacola thing said that this charter ensures that our departments are run by competent people because the council approves department heads. And I would think the citizens would want to know, well, who's running this major part of our government? Is it someone who the council has publicly vetted and determined is competent? And I think that we're pretty agreeable, and if we have someone, we get presented a resume, we'll probably go along with it. But I just think that that's our responsibility under this charter, and I would just like clarification on how those parts of the charter work. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else wanting to, Mr. Johnson?
Yeah, thank you very much, Mr. President. And I'm going to try to break it down as plain as I can. I'm confused. I have people ask me all the time, who's this department head, who's the administrator? Just tonight, we had a presentation done, and it was by Mr. Paul L. Jones, the Technology Resource Administrator. Now, I've read the charter, and it says that we're supposed to approve department heads, but I would think that would also align with an administrator. I mean, I think that those words are the same, a director or a department head, administrator or a department head. And I'm really confused. I don't know who runs what anymore here, and I tell you, it's concerning because I might get beat up in an editorial tomorrow, or in another weekly about asking questions or trying to stand in the way of this administration, and I'm really not. I'm just really trying to ask just some very plain questions. But yet, I know that it'll probably come soon, the next few days, and that's fine, but I owe it to the citizens. I owe it to the people that I represent to try to be able to explain to them who runs what department. And I can't do it right now. And that's just real plain and simple. I can't break it down any more than that. And it's very frustrating for me. And if I ask these questions, then we're beat up in the press about we're standing in the way of progress, and that's just not true. We want to be on board. I know that this council wants to be on board, but it is extremely frustrating when I don't know who to say is the department head or the administrator of what department, and it seems like it's a play to just not allow us the ability to look at these department heads or administrators or whatever you want to call them. It seems like it's a play to not allow us what I think is our responsibility under the charter to approve these. I don't really know how to play it. We're not trying to stand in the way of progress, and the print media can probably bash us, and it'll probably happen, and that's fine. That's part of the job, I guess. But there's no agenda here other than just trying to find out who is in charge of what, and get really in line with the charter. And I would ask the citizens out there to read the charter, and if I'm missing something here, please contact me. But it's just very frustrating, and I'm going to support the motion tonight. It's unfortunate that we have to go to an outside counsel and ask them for their opinion on something, or even go to a judge. But it's just, sometimes it's frustrating here, and we're doing the best we can, and I don't know any other resolution to these kind of issues. But again, this came tonight, and it was an administrator. I would think it would be in line with the department head, but we're called an administrator, therefore we're not given the opportunity to have any input in it. So thank you very much, and I'll stop there, Mr. President.
Okay. Is the gentleman wanting to speak to this topic? Okay. Yeah, just come on up and state your name, please.
Yeah, Mark Taylor, 1111 East Marino Street. And I believe Councilman Johnson and the rest of you are exactly right. I'm a citizen that voted for the new charter. And I would say that if you even went a further step to not send it to an attorney, but put a couple definitions on the November ballot, I think we would all agree plain word verbiage on there that simply says you guys choose the department heads. There's other stuff in there I won't even get into, but in my mind, Mr. Spencer's wife and others did a great job of drafting that to the effect that it is plain word verbiage. Any of us can read it. It makes perfect sense, and that's what we voted on as citizens. We may have been blinded on some parts of it, but we did the best we could with it. And I would agree so far to either say throw it on November ballot, or even to the extent of pool your funds and have a council attorney, that works for you guys directly. I know y'all are working on this staff person and all that, but you've got some discretionary money. I heard y'all cut $600,000 out of this year's budget. I mean, I don't know. It's turned into a sad game. Councilman Myers is right. It shouldn't have to go this far, but it has. So might as well just get it straightened out and look for the future for Pensacola. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Anybody else on this topic?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, is Mr. Mark Taylor, correct? I have said for some time that I think council needs to hire its own independent attorney, because I just feel that it's difficult for the city attorney to represent both the mayor and the city council. There's an old saying, you get the opinion you pay for. And we need to have our own independent counsel. And I think the idea that you brought forth is an interesting one. The council does have the power to vote to put things up on a referendum for the citizens decide if it would help to clarify things, especially regarding the departments. So that's an interesting approach, and one that I think might be viable if we aren't able to get a clear picture of how the city is run. Because we do have the responsibility as the governing body of this city to know how it's run, and the mayor has the responsibility under his 3rd enumerated power and duty to tell us how it's run. And we can't really make good decisions about the budget unless we know. And that's another thing, that we may not be able to pass the budget until we get these answers. And like Councilman Johnson says, I think that we want to be a team player here with the mayor. And I hope he'll let us be on his team and be on his side and help us do that. I mean, I want to, so anything that he can do to make that happen, I really would really appreciate him doing it. So thank you for bringing that issue up, and it's always good to hear what the citizens think, and I hope you'll continue coming down here and giving us your words of wisdom and input.
Okay, thank you. Please vote. Oh, sir. Sure. Dr. Pratt.
With Councilman Hall's tweaking, it would be to authorize me to work with the attorney to get clarification from an outside firm on how the mayor's responsibility with respect to organizing the government and our responsibility with respect to approving department heads can work together correctly, and how we uphold our responsibility.
Okay. Does it? Please vote. That passes unanimously. Mr. Townsend and Mr. Gerald's absent for the vote. Okay. Mr. Spencer.
I have no reason to speak now.
Ms. DeWeese.
Thank you, Mr. President. And I did not print a copy for each council member in the interest of saving paper, but we all received an email communication with 2 attachments to it from Visionary Wright Productions, LLC. It's a subsidiary of the Wright Productions, Inc. The president of that company, and I think it's Miss Mousy, I don't know how to pronounce it, and I apologize for that.
The lady from Detroit.
Yes, the lady from Detroit. And, during our approval process, while I have complete confidence in Public Works and Neighborhood Services to administer the contract as entered into, there was a great deal of discussion about engaging this company in some of the subcontracts because of their expertise. But she has written us with her ongoing concern of how the RFP response was handled and some concerns that she has about how that was carried out. I want to enter into the record tonight her information, her letter from August 6th, and I'll be bringing this over to the clerk after the meeting. Also, the letter that she sent on March 13th of 2012 via Allison Ballinger to Mayor Hayward, and then various email communications. In essence, the entire first attachment, talking about her experience, because she's ended up rather embarrassed with some of her clients in the Detroit area because of the way this was handled. And I don't know the other half of the story, and I think it's important that we look into this just to get an answer and have it addressed. And it may be something as simple as members of council that sit on the CMPA officially bringing this to the CMPA's attention to address her concerns. It at a minimum deserves that. I don't know if I need a motion to do that. Because the CMPA is the instrumentality of this council, I'm just asking that it be addressed by, I don't want to give them that instruction. That's what I'm very cautious of. So would you rather a motion that council have this researched and responded to officially? That's what I'm concerned about. Whatever manner, maybe in your discussions with the mayor's office, because these are letters to and from the mayor's office, if they want to address it officially and get back with us. I'm just looking for a little guidance if you'd rather one of the members of council carry it to CMPA or what.
My preference would be for Dr. Pratt to do that. I consider her the senior member of the CMPA representing the city council, having been on there the longest.
Do you prefer?
And as long as she would agree to do that, I'm not sure that we.
Do you need a motion that it be addressed, or are you comfortable just
I'm
having
comfortable as long as she'll
Will
agree to.
you clarify what, you want me to bring that up to the CMPA at the next?
Officially, yes.
Okay.
I'd like an official response to this company about their process. And she's documented it quite well. I don't want to go into a great amount of detail, but I'm submitting this into our record, our official record, the email communication that we all received this week, and requesting that one of our members of council, which is Dr. Pratt, bring that to the CMPA to officially respond to her concerns.
Okay, I will take that on.
Before we move on, I need to wait for Ms. Dubuisson. Ms. Dubuisson, you can finish the card after.
Thank you, I appreciate it, Mr. Hall. I would really request that council pass a motion asking the CMPA to address this, because it has been raised at the CMPA meetings on multiple occasions. It's been raised at every EBO meeting. It was raised at the special EBO meeting, and it seems to be an ongoing, unanswered, dangling participle, if you will, of the whole process of the city becoming the contractor in lieu of the private contractor. And while I appreciate that Ms. Pratt can raise the question, the CMPA seems unmotivated to address anything that's not forced upon them these days because they have such a full load. So if this council asked them to officially look into it and to come back with an answer to council through Ms. Pratt, they might be motivated to actually sit and get it into a formal discussion rather than saying we'll look into it, which is, I believe, why this letter was moved forward. I had the opportunity to meet with this woman when she was here, and I have heard her side of it. I've heard other sides of it, and I do believe that there is a process issue that needs to clearly be understood so that we can make certain this never happens again. When you have the president of one of the nation's largest manufacturing auto firms being asked by an assistant person in our city, can you prove that what you put in writing is true? It is a little bit insulting and makes us as a community look less than trustworthy in terms of, future opportunities. When you have cities being asked to justify the opinions that their leading people have given when it was given on a recommendation basis and, put into a written form, it's almost as though they were being challenged from the validity point, which makes us as a community look less. So we need to make certain that this process and how it evolved never happens again. I believe that, the issue is decided in terms of this organization's opportunity to work with us under the current situation, but we do need, again, the process, which I know you get tired of hearing me say that word, but if we can't get to where people realize where to start and stop, we'll keep losing opportunities. So please take a formal action on it so that CMPA will be forced to process it and respond to you.
I think you make a great point, Ms. DeWeese.
Thank you, Mr. President, and I would like to make a motion that council request the CMPA to officially address the concerns of Visionary Right Productions, LLC, as to process and the communication that occurred with her company.
Second.
Okay, the motion and 2 seconds. Mr. Spencer.
While I pressed my speak button, that was not what I intended to talk about before Councilwoman DeWeese brought it up. But definitely, I think Ms. Dubuisson pointed out probably the most frustrating dynamic about this particular incident is the longevity of no resolution and no understanding of the lineage of communication that was so eloquently documented by the petitioner, the individual that I think really entered our community in the spirit of wanting to be a major part of our new Maritime Park. So I'm glad that that action was voted on. But the reason I wanted to speak, and I've asked my neighboring council members, are we in new business, are we in old business? Everyone agrees that we're in this sort of blurry line.
We're in new business.
Okay, so we have that vote to make, and then I'll speak to
Ms.
my
Myers, your light's on.
I just second.
Okay,
her
okay,
motion.
We both
okay.
second it.
All right. Any more comment from the public? Please vote. That passes unanimously. Mr. Gerald's absent for the vote. Has he departed the meeting permanently?
I think he's in the other meeting.
Oh, okay, okay, okay. All right. Okay, okay, yeah, gotcha. Okay, Mr. Spencer. your
All right,
light's still
thanks.
on.
I am referring to our next committee of the whole meeting, in which our citizens from the East Government neighborhood have expressed their desire to be formally recognized and be able to provide the report. And I just want to encourage them to maintain a dialogue with me up until that meeting, so that with your permission, or fellow council members' understanding, that my goal is to help ensure that their report is not something that feels that it is compromised due to any sort of tightened time frame, and perhaps that they can discuss with me how their presentation will be made, and what sort of, again, time allotment could occur. I do want to provide for council members that have not been at those workshops. I feel confident that Mr. Alan Gray, who is a certified planner with the American Institute of Certified Planners, or American Planning Association, I think he has proven to be someone that has withstood an atmosphere charged with high emotion and volatility. Those that are certified planners have to maintain a high level of ethical standards, and I think that with his presence here at the next committee of the whole meeting, I feel confident that he will do everything he can to provide the context that allows the citizens to express their reasonable concerns about their neighborhood, and I vow to do the same. But I want to be able to have that conversation with those citizens and help make sure that their report is certainly restores what may have been lost in any of the notes from that last meeting.
Mr. Mueller, there's your invitation.
Thank you, Mr. Spencer. We have worked together with Mr. Spencer as part of this committee. He was a member of our working group, and I see no reason why that will stop now. We look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. Mr. Reynolds, your light's on? No? Okay. Open forum. I have one card here. Mr. Tom Garner.
Hi, I'm Tom Garner, 1908 East Hatton Street. I'd intended to come and thank the council on behalf of the chickens of Pensacola and their owners for our new ordinance. I didn't read this News Journal editorial thing, and I got to tell you, it bothers me, and I'd like to point out, and by the way, thank you. I mean, I really sincerely mean that. It's really important to us, but there was no other avenue for us to approach this. There was no other, I hope they're listening, because it really irritates me. There was no other way to approach this. There's an ordinance on the books. It's been on the books since 1918. No, it's not Nate. Nate is different than the editorial board. I know that. Don't pick on Nate. There was no other avenue. There was no other avenue to address this issue for you as a council. There was no avenue other than this for us as citizens to address this issue. There's an ordinance on the books about chickens. A resident got busted by code enforcement. He said, "What can I do to change the ordinance?" They said, "Go to your council member." And he did, and that got this whole process started, drew the rest of us in. they may think the issue of chickens is a silly issue, and that's fine, but I can tell you this. This process is not silly. This is textbook democracy. Amen. Textbook democracy. And the News Journal editorial board missed a huge opportunity to instruct the general public about how this whole thing works, you know? That as citizens, we got together. I'm going to tell you, we spent a lot of time on this. I spent over $100 on this, you know, of my own money. It matters to me. And we got together and we met numerous times and we hashed this out. We got our facts together. We presented them to you. I can't tell you what it meant to us to see council members with our information packet in front of them at the committee of the whole meeting. It just is the greatest thing, you know. And the editorial board could have written an editorial that said, hey, citizens of Pensacola, this is how you get involved. This is not something you have to be scared of. This is how it works. You know, you got an issue, it's flooding, it's trees, it's crime, whatever your issue is, you can approach your council and you can get some solutions to what your problem is. And I really appreciate and not just the yay votes on the new ordinance. I appreciate Councilmember Townsend who voted against the ordinance. I'm not sure why, and that's okay. But I do know that he like everyone considered the issue and came to a judgment based on that. And that's how this works. It's so important. It's a huge missed opportunity for the News Journal editorial board not to show other citizens, hey, this is democracy in action. Anyway, I don't want to take more of your time. I really appreciate it. Our group's going to continue. We hope to, we're still working with the county to get the county ordinance in shape. That's going to start on Monday at their committee, the whole meeting. And once that's taken care of, our group's going to stay together and try to serve as an information hub, maybe hold some workshops and have an internet presence to answer questions and so forth. I will also want to thank Mr. Reynolds and particularly Mr. Weinecke, who worked with us very hard on this issue. And thank you so much.
Okay. Thank you, sir. Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to thank him for coming down and speaking to that, because it is absolutely true that it's one of those simple things that we are able to address. Life is not some flash of lightning with thunder behind it, except maybe for today. We've had quite a bit of it. But what I mean by that, it's made up of very small steps along the way, and this is a seemingly small issue, and everyone gets the giggles when we talk about it, that we're talking about chickens, but it is a small group, actually one person that came forward and said, how do I address my government? Mr. Darling wasn't even in my district, but I responded and said, this is a very simple process, and get organized and come with a plan. Come with recommendations, and I think it went wonderfully well, and it's an example at its simplest level of an issue that we were able to address successfully, and I think it was an incredibly unifying endeavor for our community. Parts of neighborhoods have come together. There's people that remain frustrated, but it was people that were bad chicken owners before and are being addressed, and I just think it was a wonderful thing for our community. So thanks for coming down and defending that issue.
Ms. Myers?
Yes, I too wanted to thank you for coming down, and I am proud that I was able to work with the community to revise our ordinance. I owe it to your organization. You did a lot of the suggestions on the revisions. And I'm very proud of this council and the way the council responded to the citizens. And I would hope, too, that the press would see the value in how the democratic process works. And it really does work. And I believe that this council is really in tune to the citizens, and we want the democratic process to work for the citizens. I think this council is very committed to it, and so I'm very proud of our city council, and thank you for your words of confidence in us.
Thank you. Dr. Wu.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. I also want to thank Mr. Carter for coming down and want to tell you how much we appreciate hearing your kind words. I was so excited, I almost said tongue-in-cheek that the council ought to take up a collection and buy you a chicken dinner. But we do appreciate your kind words very much. Thank you.
Okay, I have one other person, I guess, wishing to speak. You fill out the card later, ma'am. Okay. Ma'am, you can come on down. Oh, I'm sorry, Ms. Excuse me, Ms. Rashad. Yeah, Ms. Rashad, you're next. I was so focused on not wanting to miss this lady that I forgot to call you down. Welcome.
My throat, I'm easy to miss, I understand. Hi, I'm Robin Richard. I just want to thank the council. I didn't want to speak because I knew it was on the consent agenda for your bold leadership. That's not my words, it's the words that Dr. Thomas Boston used when we started this process. It started way before I got involved. But when we started this process on the diversity study. And I know that you have taken some flack over spending the amount of money, but you can either look at it as penance or an investment. I pray that you look at it as an investment in the citizens of Pensacola who some, and not having to do strictly with color, but some have felt that they have been left out of the process. And the process, as we were talking about this, involves three very important things. One is recruitment of businesses and people to the city of Pensacola. The other one is retention. It's not enough just to bring people and businesses to the city of Pensacola, but we have to keep them here. And we want to continue to make that investment, and that goes to the economic viability of our city. The other thing is the promotion of that. So making those businesses larger, as large as they want to get. And we need the diversity in Pensacola. We need the diversity to maintain the diversity in the Escambia County, and not just in terms of race or color, but in terms of ideas and thoughts and experiences. I wonder how many people would have said Sam Walton is not appreciated for his diverse thinking, agree or not agree with Walmart's train of thought and their business acumen, but how many people would have said we don't want them here because he dared to think differently. And so that's all that I wanted to say to you, is to commend you for doing that, but to say that this battle that we've been in for equity does not stop with passing the plan. It requires action, and it still requires bold leadership on your part. It requires, as Dr. Thomas Boston said, the shared vision and then creating opportunity also. So again, I want to commend you, and I want to challenge you to keep running in the fight. You're not in this by yourself. This is not a black-white thing. This is a citizen thing. And I just want to commend you, and don't get tired in the fight. We have to keep doing it, and that's what the citizens are at your back. We're not kicking you, we're pushing you forward so that we can all move forward together. So thank you very much.
Before you leave, I just wanted to respond, if you don't mind, just a moment. Whether it was for penance or investment, the amount of money that we spend, I think, is very important to point out. This was a proven firm that comes up with, when they present a study, and we got frustrated how long it took them to get this study done, but they have court tested recommendations to make. And I think that's just really, really important, because there's been so many decisions out there over the years, and going first to the right and then to the left and then some sort of mushy middle, that these will stand up to any of those decisions that are out there. So I think that for penance or investment, either one, that it was well worth the money, and I was very proud of the council. Also, one of the things I really enjoyed about the report, out of all of us that are doing poorly in the community in this way, the city of Pensacola actually came out looking pretty well compared to some of the other entities, not just government bodies, but the private sector as well. And those are policies that 2 or 3 councils here over the last few years have put together. And I don't get a chance to do this very often, but I'm going to point to Mr. Gerald's down there and give him extra credit for never letting this die. So
I didn't mind spending the money. I didn't mind spending the money at all, because oftentimes we have to make that investment. I'm just saying, in your heart of hearts, whether you thought of it as penance or an investment.
Yes.
I'm just hoping and praying that everyone thought of it as an investment back into the citizens of Pensacola.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
And Mr. Gerald's wanted to say something.
I just wanted to briefly state that until there is a commitment on this council And when the recommendations come forth, I want to ensure that there is an enforcement clause. Because at 65, I darn well know that a bunch of promises without enforcement does not work. And I have 65 years of experience. So we can all go kumbaya, we got a great study. It told us some things that I already knew, and the rest of you probably knew as well. But unless there is enforcement, strict and strong enforcement, then all of this will mean nothing. So I call on each of you for your commitment, and when we bring up that enforcement clause, who does it? Will it be the chief of police, if necessary? Will it be the sheriff of Escambia County? I'm not suggesting that it's going to need, well, I do know this town very well, if it's going to need somebody with a pistol on their hip to get us to do the right thing. But in the absence of enforcement, it'll just be like the pre-disparity study, sitting on a shelf collecting dust. So y'all can all go home tonight and pray about it if you'd like, but commit yourselves to doing the right thing and having the proper and appropriate enforcement tools available, that anybody who breaks the rule or steps out of line can be brought back into line so that we can make this thing happen. Thank you.
Mr. Weiss.
Thank you, Mr. President. And Councilman Gerald said something that sparked a thought that I had brought up during the presentation on Monday, and I hope that our entire community sees this as a call to action. There were some things pointed out about the private sector, a concern of mine that the African American commercial loan denial rate was the highest that this company had ever seen, and it's 140 different engagements. And what that showed me was that we do, as a community, we need to address this on the private sector side, but empower people in our community to support these small businesses. And I'm going to actually follow up with the young lady that spoke on some of the statistics, because my concern is that we might be missing the point on the non-responding SBE participants. And what I mean by that is we have a wonderful list and we have a strong effort by our purchasing department, and we have taken the pre-disparity study and implemented some good, solid measures. But we're missing the point if we don't look at why there are non-responding SBE participants. And I believe we will find that they don't have the resources to respond, whether it be to stop their daily life of the work they're doing to support their family to actually respond to our RFPs, or if they don't have the ability to get funding at our local banks. So those are some things that we can't directly insist on in our community, but we can certainly empower the lending institutions in our committee and the people that have the expertise to support them, accountants, different people in the financial industry. I know that the Small Business Administration, UWF, helps as well. But this is a call to action for everyone. It's not something that is being addressed in a vacuum by 9 members of council and the mayor and his staff. It is a community issue. So I hope that people continue to engage us with this as we go forward. Thank you.
Ms. Myers.
I'll pass.
Mr. Gerald.
That's one final comment on this subject, I hope. But you know, we have a perfect example. That example would be Hixar Technologies. We were at the door, and then a group of financial backers, or whoever they were, backed off. So then we had to extend his opportunity to get the right funding until January, 2013? But that's an example of what has been happening in this community, in this city, time and time again. Mr. Hicks was ready to go, and we all know it. And the next thing you know, phooey. It just blew up, and now we're talking, well, 2013, we'll look at it again. That's not enforcement. And in our position, we could not enforce what the financial institutions were doing. But if you need a recent example, that's it. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, sir. Ms. Sonia Merritt.
Sonia Merritt, 805 South J Street. The reason I'm talking about this, I have a problem with parking in the city. You built Sanders Beach. Inadequate parking, and I was told that, because I live down there with no off-street parking in my home, oh, you can just park somewhere else and they can park in your parking space if they needed more parking for the park. Well, I've got to walk 2 blocks at 10 o'clock at night because somebody's having a party down there alone. And now you built the big park down here, no parking. And eventually those places you're parking now may be developed into some type of business. Now you're going to put a big office building there. Is there going to be parking for that? I mean, you keep building things. I, as a business, had to have adequate parking. You built the Olive Drop, that Bodacious Olive, you're building the deli, you're building a place for the hot dog stand, no parking. But as my business, I had to provide adequate parking. Why is it different for businesses who operate further into the city or the city builds them? That's my concern as a citizen. And on gallery night, I don't want to have to pay $5 when normally I haven't had to. Because there was a ball game, I now have to pay $5 to park. That's not fair. Even coming down here, they stopped me coming into a meeting. Oh, this is $5 tonight for the ballpark. I'm not going to the ball game, but you got to prove it. So
Did they let you in without?
Yeah.
Okay, good.
Yeah, but I mean, the
Yeah.
point was, they stopped me, and I'm like, I'm going to a council meeting. This shouldn't be a problem. You know, and they kind of looked at me like, you know, what do you mean? Like they didn't know there was a council meeting, maybe.
Yeah.
But, you know, the point is, you keep building things down here, you can't get through the traffic at night if you come by this place. You want to divert away from any businesses that are down here. You're going to leave if there's a ballpark that night or any other activity going, because you can't get through Main Street. So you're going to have businesses down here losing business because of a new business. You know, and now you're going to add, and if we have something going on at the world-class amphitheater and the ballpark, then where are they all going to park? We could never have 2 events. So I think somebody needs to address that before you put that office building down here. And we need a lot more parking for that too. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to have somebody maybe make a motion for us to discuss sometime some of these neighborhoods, their parking. I know that my daughter, the neighborhood she lived in, they had passes that they got for their on-street parking. During the daytime, it was open up to anybody. But between, let's say, the hours of 6 in the evening and 6 in the morning, then you had to have that parking pass to be there. Okay. Anyway, I just brought that up. So, Mr. Gerald's.
Yes, my question would be to the gentle lady. You're referring to your residence?
Yeah, I live on 805 South J Street. I'm like a half a block from the park. I go home at night, if it's 8 o'clock and there's something going on, I'm a block or 2 away from getting a place to park. And I don't want to have to park down the road down there at the Wall Center. I have a neighbor who they're parking.
Yeah, ma'am,
Well, in any case-
you need to come back up to the
Yes.
lectern, please.
In any case, that shouldn't be. A person at a residence should not be affected by.
Well,
the
I asked the park place, and he said, you'll just have to find someplace else to park. I don't have off-street parking. A lot of the homes in Sanders Beach didn't. You know, they're older homes. The gentleman next to me, he has a lot. He has to keep calling the law to get them off his parking place, from the bingo joint to your place. They park on his property illegally, and no one cares.
Well, then could we create a sign that says residential parking area only?
Then
Because
where
I
will
don't
they
think
park?
somebody needs
Where
to
will
be
they
out
park?
there.
Where are you going to park these people?
Well, they can park where they want to park. We're trying to get you home.
I know, but I'm saying, all
Okay, where
up
they
down the
park?
streets, this is what happens. One night, they were parked 2 blocks away every direction because of some big fiesta party.
Well, if we can create.
I
a
parked on
sign-
the sidewalk that night.
Yeah. That
Okay,
This
okay,
parking is
okay.
restricted to residents only.
Okay.
That should be made
let-
clear.
Instead of debating it tonight, let's just get it onto the agenda to talk some other time. So I need a motion from
I'll
somebody.
make the motion.
Second,
Okay, motion and
as long as
second.
y'all keep me.
Okay, all right,
Anybody got to
please,
say?
please vote.
Y'all want to stay here all night, it's okay with me.
Okay, we need somebody to release the votes. Yeah. Erica has left the building. Okay, let's just do a show of hands here. All in favor? That passes unanimously. All right. I think that takes care of everything.
Just one quick question
ma'am.
on that. Can we add that the zoning be addressed? Because I believe that most residential zoning requires of off-street parking be available. This is probably an older area of town, but if that could be part of it, that we understand how that is zoned in that area, that would be helpful. Sometimes you have alleyways and off-street
I
parking
see
that way.
Mr. Reynolds writing down right now.
All right.
Okay, great.
you.
Thank you. We're adjourned.